All right. Your first witness?
We call Christi Dembrowski.
Kristen Dembrowski?
Yes.
All right, Kristen Dembrowski. Is she outside?
She is.
Okay. Kristen Dembrowski.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case under penalty of the law?
You have to verbally answer, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Ms. Dembrowski. Would you please state your full name for the record?
Elisa Christine Dembrowski.
Ms. Dembrowski, what relationship, if any, do you have with Johnny Depp?
He's my younger brother.
How much older are you than Johnny?
2.5 years.
Ms. Dembrowski, I'd like to ask you a few questions about your and Johnny's childhood. Where did you all grow up?
We were born in Kentucky and we moved to Florida when we were kids.
Who lived in your household with you and Johnny?
Our mom, our dad, we have an older brother and older sister, and John.
Would you please tell the jurors what your relationship with Johnny was like when you were growing up?
Johnny and I were very close. With having the older brother and older sister, we were the two younger ones, so we were really close, and we basically were together all the time. We played together. We played Hot Wheels. We, played Batman and Robin, where we each had a role in that. And he's probably going to be embarrassed I say any of this, but we practiced, karate kicks with each other and chopping. We were just friends. We were like best friends.
What was Johnny like as a young boy?
Objection, Your Honor, 404.
If you want to approach.
As I was saying, Ms. Dembrowski, what was Johnny like as a little boy?
He was a shy, sweet little boy. He had a very caring personality, but also he was a little bit of a clown. He loved to, play tricks on us or try to scare us. He was a very typical happy little boy.
Objection, Your Honor, move to strike 404.
Your Honor, I'm going exactly where I said I was going.
All right. I'll stay in the last part of her answer, and we'll go forward from there.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Ms. Dembrowski, how would you describe your parents' relationship?
That was complicated.
Would you please explain to the jury what you mean when you say your parents' relationship was complicated?
Our parents they had two completely different personalities, and where our father was also a very kind, patient, loving, gentle man. And our mom was the opposite. She was very high-strung, very nervous, anxiety, angry. So they were completely opposite people.
What was your mother's first name?
Betty?
Did your mother, Betty, ever get angry with your father?
Yes.
How would your mother express her anger toward your father?
She would scream, she would yell at him, she would hit him, call him names, that kind of thing.
Did your father ever hit your mother back?
No, Dad never reacted when Mom would hit him or scream at him.
If he didn't hit her back, how, if at all, did he react?
Basically, he would let her scream and get it out or hit and be done. And the way that you dealt with my mom, the way that he dealt with my mom was he always tried to keep the peace, so he never wanted to, he didn't want to engage in anything, so he was very, he would step back, and whatever it was that she was angry about, he would try to go ahead and make sure that he took care of whatever she was insisting that he do.
Is it fair to say he did what she wanted?
Yes, it's very fair to say he did.
What, if anything, did you and Johnny do while your mother was hitting or attacking your father?
We would leave the area. We would run and hide. We would go to our room, either we would go to our room together or, depending on where we lived, if our room was close, we would sort of run off and get away from it.
How did your mother treat you and your brothers and sisters?
Well, there's a similarity, I'm sorry, in how she treated Dad. Again, she was very anxious, high-strung. She screamed, she yelled, she hit, she threw things. She called us names. We each had our own little special set of names. Some we wouldn't repeat, but so she gave each one of us a name. My name, for example, was Violet, which to some people it wouldn't seem like it's anything, but Violet was my father's mother, and my mom hated my father's mother. So that was my special name, one of them.
Did your mother have any special names for Johnny?
Yes, she did. She had a few. Again, some to not repeat. Her favorite, I think, was, she called him One Eye. And she called him that because when he was young, the doctors thought he had a lazy eye, so they would put a patch on his good eye so that they would strengthen the other eye. So she used that as, a way to find a new fun name for him.
How did Johnny respond when your mother would call him One Eye?
He didn't respond in any negative way. Those names were just a way of life. We got used to them. We accepted all of it.
Putting aside the names, did your mother ever get angry with you?
Yes.
Did your mother ever get physical with you?
Yes, she did, but I was also very quiet, very shy, and I learned early on to stay back. So I was more in the background because I would constantly sort of stay in the background to stay away from trouble.
Ms. Dembrowski, when your mother did get physical with you, what forms did that take?
Well, she would hit us. She would throw things. She would have us go pick a switch, off of a tree, so that would be what she could hit us with, and make sure that we got one that was nice and green. So
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Why did it have to be nice and green?
well, if it wasn't a nice green twig, it would snap. Those didn't break. If you got a dry one, they snap. They don't work the same.
Did your mother ever get angry at Johnny?
Yes.
Did you ever observe your mother hitting Johnny?
Yes.
How, if at all, did Johnny react when his mother would hit him?
He was a typical little boy where if it hurt, he would cry. That was it. I mean, for the most part, you just wanted to get away from it.
Did Johnny ever hit his mother back?
No.
What about when he got to be an older boy? Did he ever resist or hit her
No.
back?
No. No. When he was older, even if she hit or threw things, he never went to that place. He would get away. He would, leave the area, go to his room.
Ms. Dembrowski, did there come a time when you left the family household?
Yes.
When did you leave the household?
I left when I was 17. I was pregnant and got married and moved out into my own place.
How did it feel when you left the family to go out and go to your own place?
I think there's a bittersweetness to it. I was really young. I had just turned 17. But I was so looking forward to this new life that I could create that was different from what we had at home. And so there was a part of me that was really happy to be able to do this, really excited. And there was another part that was sad because I left behind my little brother and my dad.
If you could explain that a bit, how did, if at all, did your experience with your mother affect your ideas about what you intended to do with your own family?
No. Really early on, as a young child, none of what was happening in our home felt good. And so as I got older, both Johnny and I actually, we decided that once we had our own home, that we were never going to repeat ever anything similar in any way to our childhood. We were gonna do it different.
So Johnny felt the same way?
Absolutely.
When you left the home to start your own family, who among the original 4 children were left at home with your mother?
Johnny.
Did there come a time when your parents separated?
Yes.
Would you please tell the jury what happened?
There was our father one morning decided to pack up everything and leave early in the morning. We didn't know it at the time. I don't think, but I didn't. I didn't live there. I was at work. And then I got a call from my mom in the afternoon, right after she got off work. She called me, and it was hard to understand her voice. She sounded faint and kind of groggy, but she kept saying, "He's gone, he's gone, he's gone." And I was trying to get out of her, "Was it Dad?" And she said, "Yes, your daddy." And I said, "Mom, are you okay? What's going on? Did you take your pills?" Because she took what she called nerve pills, and she said she had. I asked how many. She couldn't tell me how many she took, but I knew she was getting fainter on the phone, and it was more clear to me that she was not in a good way. So I called I called our friend, our parents' friend, actually, who was a police officer, and told him that he needed to get to Mom and what was going on, and so he got an ambulance to get over there to her.
And this was after your father left?
Yes, this is the day.
Ms. Dembrowski, do you know why your father left?
I know at the time, because I did try to speak to him after, because Mom continued to not do well. At the time, he said that they had the last argument that he felt that they could ever have. He felt he needed to leave home this time. And to be honest, I didn't really understand. It had been so many years that he had been taking all of the, all of her personality. And I didn't really understand exactly, fully what that last argument was, why it was so intense. We did learn many years later in our adult life that what he was referring to when he said
I move to strike all this, Your Honor, as hearsay.
All right. I guess the objection is hearsay.
Your Honor, again, I think it's not offered for the proof. It's offered for the abuse and the culture in which.
I'll sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes.
Did your mother recover after she took the pills?
Yes. She continued to not be well, but she recovered.
And after that time, did she ever take more pills than she should have?
She did, but she didn't do it to the degree that she had at that point.
And going back to the incident that you described, do you know where Johnny was at the time your mother took those pills?
Johnny was home.
Did there come a time? Oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry. I think he was sleeping at the time. I think he woke up when Mom came out and the ambulance came.
So he saw all of that.
Yes.
Objection, foundation.
Did he see that? She said
Well,
she testified he was in the home.
He was in the home, but was she in the home? I guess, how did she know? So I'll sustain to foundation.
Thank you. Did there come a time when Johnny left his mother's house?
Yes.
And after Johnny, what did Johnny do when he left the house?
Objection, foundation.
All right, I'll sustain his foundation if you want to lay a foundation.
Were you in communication with your brother at the time?
Yes. He came and lived with me for part of the time.
So I think that. So what did your brother do after he left your mother's house?
He lived in different places. He lived with me and he lived with another family.
Did you and Johnny continue to communicate with your mother, Betty, after you both left the home?
Yes. Yes, we did.
And after what you have described, why did you and Johnny continue to communicate with your mother?
Objection, foundation is to Johnny.
I think she's already laid the foundation. They're very close. She was in communication.
I'll sustain the objection if you want for this particular question.
Why did you continue to communicate with your mother?
Because she was our mom and we loved her. I mean, we knew, even when we were younger that things weren't, they didn't feel right, but what we understood was that, Mom had her own upbringing, so she had her own past and the way she was raised would affect the way she lived. And so she, in our mind, she was doing the best she could do. We sort of treated it like she did the best that she could do with the tools that she was given, from her life in the past. And what we decided to do was we just decided to get new tools. We chose different tools from that.
And when you say we, to whom are you referring?
I'm referring to Johnny
Objection
then.
foundation, that's the
I'll overrule that objection. All right, next question.
Thank you, Ronnie. Did you ever live with your mother again after you and Johnny had left the house?
I did live with her briefly. She had gotten diagnosed with asthma when we lived in Florida, and she needed to move to a drier climate. So Johnny moved her to California, to Palm Springs for the drier weather. And I moved also so that she wouldn't be alone. So I lived with her for a period then.
And if you could just please elaborate on what role, if any, Johnny played in your mother's move to Palm Springs.
He was the only reason the move could happen. He purchased her a home and paid to have everything moved out there.
Did there come a time when your mother ever left Palm Springs?
She moved from Palm Springs to be a bit closer to where Johnny and I lived in the LA area. She lived there for a bit, and then ultimately she went back to Kentucky. She had her siblings were still there, and a couple of them weren't doing well, so she wanted to be closer to them while she could.
And after she moved back to Kentucky from Palm Springs, did there come a time when your mother became chronically ill?
Yes,
When was that?
2011.
Would you please describe briefly what her health condition was as of 2011?
Well, in 2011, she was living in Kentucky, and we received a call that she had been diagnosed with the final stages of Parkinson's. But then when another doctor looked at her scans, they felt it was something different. So we had the scans brought to a doctor in California, and they suggested that she come out and see a neurologist right away. So Johnny got a plane, a private plane, and he and I, we flew to go pick her up and bring her back to California to start seeing the doctors.
And when she moved back in 2011 to California, was that a permanent move?
It became basically a permanent move. She still had her house in Kentucky in the hopes of her being able to go back and forth, but her health basically kept her in California, so she lived here or there.
And by that time, 2011, when she's moved out to Los Angeles, had her treatment of you and Johnny changed in any way?
Yes, mom softened as she aged. She totally softened.
And once your mother moved to Los Angeles permanently in 2011, what role, if any, did your brother Johnny play in her caretaking?
objection foundation.
All right, I'll sustain as a foundation.
To what extent, if any, did your brother play any role in her caretaking?
I think that's still a foundation objection.
Do you have knowledge of whether your brother had any role in her caretaking?
Yes.
Would you please explain to the jury, because I think Her Honor needs to hear whether there's a foundation.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, when we brought Mom out, over time, she had multiple other illnesses that came up, and Johnny he dealt directly with the doctors like we did. Hired private nurses so that we could make sure that Mom was taken care of. He basically, Johnny was he took all financial responsibility for anything and everything that Mom could need or want during this time. All medical care, doctors, hospitals, nurses.
How do you know that?
I was directly involved.
Is it fair to say you saw Johnny do those things and have
Yes.
those interactions?
Yes, I was there. I was directly involved in all of that.
Did you witness your brother having any interactions with the doctors relating to your mother's care?
Yes.
How often, if at all, did your brother visit your mother, Betty, after she came to live in Los Angeles in 2011?
Objection, foundation.
Were you ever present with your brother and your mother when you all were visiting?
Yes. Mom lived in a house that was basically across the street from Johnny. It was a house that he has on his street. And I was there, quite a bit. Johnny was pretty much down there every day, a couple times a day. Mom, like, she would see them all the time. One of her favorite things was watching Johnny take the kids to school and waving at them, because she never got to do that before. So,
Who were your brother's kids?
Lily Rose and Jack.
We'll get to that in a little bit. Did there come a time when the family was considering putting your mother in a hospice?
There was there were conversations with the doctors that we should start to consider that, since we weren't 100% sure with the variety of conditions that she had, what we needed to do. The idea of hospice was something that felt like, since we didn't know a time frame, the idea of introducing new nurses or something, at a certain point in someone's life where they recognize there's a difference, and that could be frightening for them. So we didn't want to instill any fear. Johnny's big on Mom not having fear. So instead, that's when we hired nurses, so that the nurses could be there 24/7, and she would have people continuously throughout her life that she knew that they were friendly and cared for.
Did you actually have a conversation with your brother about the possibility of your mother going into hospice?
Yes.
Did he express an opinion about it?
Yes. Well, this is where it all comes from, because the idea of hospice, which is an amazing thing, but for someone who, when you don't know, with the variety of illnesses, you don't know what a timing is, the idea of introducing it, new people, is something that becomes almost a signal, and this was a very big discussion. This is why the nurses were hired.
Was this just one discussion, or was it a series of discussions?
Objection, calls for hearsay.
I'm not asking for hearsay. I'm just asking about whether it was discussed once or a number of
I'll
times.
overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Was this just one discussion, or were there more discussions among you and your brother about how to best care for your mother?
We had continuous discussions. As a matter of fact, there were daily updates. He knew every day everything that was happening with Mom. Whether he was in town, out of town because he was working or traveling, I made sure, because it's hard when you know that someone wants to be there and they can't. So I made sure to fill him in on
Objection,
everything.
hearsay.
It's not offered for the truth of it.
No, I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Did you ever see Johnny's children, Jack and Lily Rose, over at your mother's house across the street from Mr. Depp?
Yes.
Ms. Dembrowski, I'd like to change subjects right now, if that's all right, and ask you to please tell us a little bit about your work life. Did there come a time when you worked in the entertainment industry?
Yes. I started working when we moved from Florida to Palm Springs. This is why I lived for a short period with my mom. I got a job at one of the studios in Los Angeles.
Which studio was that?
It was Columbia Pictures. My title was, I was an executive assistant to the executive vice president of comedy development.
And what were your job responsibilities when you started there?
I handled my executives' daily schedule, meetings, budgets, scripts, phone calls, and then in addition to that, we had there were 4 other executives, and they had assistants. So my desk was also to oversee those assistants, and when we had writers come in, I oversaw those assistants as well.
It sounds like a big job.
It was a good job.
How long did you work at Columbia Pictures Television in that role?
I think it was about 1.5 years.
Why did you leave after 1.5 years?
Columbia itself started folding different departments, and ours, our comedy development being one of them. And so some of the employees that worked there went to work for Sony or TriStar, other sort of arms of the corporation. And I was the last one there, sort of wrapping up the department to go on to my next job.
So after you wrapped up the transition, the closing up of the department, what did you do in terms of your work life?
I went to work with my brother.
In what capacity? When you say your brother, to whom are you referring?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, when you say your brother, to whom are you specifically referring?
I went to work with my brother Johnny.
What type of things did you do for your brother Johnny?
Similar things to what I was doing with the other boss that I worked for before, but with Johnny, he was, I was helping him anyway as a sister, bits and pieces before I started working with him. So there were things like travel and, meetings, setting meetings, making sure he had his, the scripts that were coming in and he knew, all the information about them. And, any kind of publicity stuff that he had to do. Because I really started to do this job with him because there was one time that I had gone to his house and I was helping him get ready to go on a trip, and his ticket, I read it out loud and it said standby. And I said, why are you on standby? He had no one looking out for that kind of stuff, so I did all of that.
How, if at all, did your work for your brother change over time?
Well, over time, it sort of grew. Well, not sort of, it did grow. His agent, I worked sort of hand in hand with his agent, and, as she got to know me more and I got to know her more, there were other parts of her job, actually, that she would give to me. So, instead of just doing scheduling meetings and calendars and travel, now I become a person who's talking to producers or, as it expands, all the executives at the studios and studio heads, and I become a part of contract negotiation, etc. It just grew.
What role, if any, did you play in dealing with Johnny's movie contracts?
Movie contracts, because I know the history and because there's a certain amount of parts of life that are important, to a human being, not just to an actor, but to a human being, and I know the human being. I was part of mostly negotiating parts like there's an area called perks, and perks means anything and everything that an actor would need in order to perform his duties, and in order to to also move right to the location to do the duties. So I was part of all important dates that needed to be considered in a calendar, making sure the house was what he needed to have for the family, the travel to get there, making sure he had his staff, drivers, security, pretty much anything necessary was in that.
Ms. Dembrowski, can you give the jury some examples of some of the things you put on the perks list?
Sure. It was really important as Johnny had a family, it was really important to be able to make sure that we were given the opportunity to find the right accommodations, and the accommodations for the children, a house that, could, give them a home away from home with a garden, all the travel to make sure that they all get there. There were really important dates that we carved out in every contract. For Johnny's kids, for their birthday, he never wanted to miss their birthday, so if he wasn't able to be with them because of filming, it was built into the contract that he had their birthday off, and he would have the day before and the day after, so that he'd be able to travel to get to them and then get back to working. So in addition to that, I mean, there's quite a bit. We also had it built in that if he was to be away from his kids filming, if the kids couldn't travel and the family couldn't travel to be there, we had in his contract that he would be able to fly back to them from wherever he is every 2 weeks. So he didn't go beyond every 2 weeks not seeing his children. It's that kind of stuff that, was important.
Ms. Dembrowski, do you know what a personal manager is in the context of the entertainment world?
I do.
What is it, if you could explain it to the jury, because I just learned it myself.
Well, I believe it's basically what a lot of what I was doing. They work with their client on maintaining different items in their personal life, as well as projects coming in, production, all of the representatives. It's sort of a big scope of duties.
Has anyone ever referred to you as Johnny's personal manager?
I have been called that before, yes.
Do you perform the responsibilities of being Johnny's personal manager?
I did.
Do you still work with Johnny?
Yes.
Do you also work with any of Johnny's companies? Or strike that. Does your brother have any companies associated with him?
He has a production company called Infinitum Nile.
What type of company is Infinitum Nile?
It's a production company. We develop, projects for films or television or, different things.
And putting aside your responsibilities as your brother's personal managers, what role, if any, do you play in Infinitum Nile?
I'm president of Infinitum Nile.
When did you start working at Infinitum Nile?
From the beginning, in 2004. I think we started in July 2004.
And would you please explain to the jury some of your responsibilities as president of Infinitum Nile?
My duties as president were I oversaw everything within the company, the staff where we were developing projects, where, maybe there's a book that people want to develop into a film or a TV show or different ideas. So I oversaw that, all of the development, their schedules with meetings with different people to take those projects out, to pitch. There's so many tasks to that job. I don't know how to really lay them out.
Ms. Dembrowski, when did the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie come out?
I think it was 2003, I think.
What was your brother's role in Pirates?
He was Captain Jack Sparrow.
Fair to say that was the lead?
That was the lead.
How did the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie fare at the box office?
It did very well. I think it surprised people and did very well. People really, they loved the entertainment of it, the total ride.
Did the success of Pirates 1 change Johnny's career in any way?
I would have to say yes. The success of Pirates 1, it became Johnny, with that role and other studios and everybody seeing the success of that film and how the audiences reacted to that character, there was a whole lot more people wanting to be in business with him.
And did the success of Pirates 1 change his personal life in any way? Or his day-to-day life?
It did. Because where prior to that, he was able to go out somewhat. He could, go to different stores, go to bookstores, go to restaurants. When Pirates 1 came out, after that, he was much more recognizable now. So many people loved that character, and so he was much more recognizable. So it became harder for him to go out in public without having a lot of people come around that, rightfully so, wanted to meet him. And but then it also became really big, and so we had even people that were chasing in cars. So we had to, at that point, we had to get security team to kind of come in and help us manage how this all works.
Who is Jerry Judge?
Jerry Judge was basically Johnny's head security.
When did Jerry Judge start coming to work with your brother?
Well, we started working with Jerry Judge back in the 90s. Because Jerry had his own security company in London. And when we would go over there for press or premieres or whatever, Jerry was the one, that set everything up. And we became really close with him back then. And as things grew with Pirates, we brought him over more and more, for some of the items that we had, some of the work that he had, if it was a show or whatever, and brought him on, and then he started just working basically on every film with us after Pirates, probably right around that time.
How long did Jerry Judge work with you and Johnny?
Well, again, we met him in the 90s, so and around Pirates is 2003, and Jerry was with us up until we lost him.
When did you lose him?
We lost him a couple of years ago to cancer.
What was Jerry's relationship like with Johnny?
Objection, foundation, Your Honor.
All right.
Did you ever see Jerry Judge interact with your brother?
Sustain the objection. That's leading the next question. That's fine.
Thank
All right,
you, Your Honor. What, if any, observations were there any times when you saw your brother interact with Jerry Judge?
I saw the two of them interact quite a lot, and they loved each other. They were like, Jerry thought of him as his like a son, and sometimes as a brother. They really did love each other, and so much respect both ways.
You move to strike all of that.
I don't think there's any basis to strike that. I think it was most responsive to the
I'll
question.
overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I wanted to touch on something you mentioned a few moments ago when you were referring to Mr. Depp's children. I believe you said it was daughter Lily Rose and son Jack. Who is the mother of Johnny's children?
Vanessa Paradis.
Did Johnny and Vanessa Paradis ever live together as a couple?
Yes.
How long did Johnny and Vanessa Paradis live together as a couple?
I think they were together 14 years, I think.
And did their children live with them during the 14 years?
Yes.
How much time would you say you spent with Johnny, Vanessa, Lily Rose, and Jack?
When they were in Los Angeles, I would say I saw them all daily. Our office where we work, our office it was only 10 minutes from their house, so I would make trips back and forth, or every day after work, I would go straight to the house. So I saw them daily.
Would you please explain to the jury what it was like spending time with Johnny and his family?
It was great. It was great. It was a normal, happy family, you know. You go there and the kids are playing and, you know, making dinner, everybody having dinner, cleaning up together, sitting around, laughing. It was great.
Did you have occasion to see your brother interact with his children?
Yes. Yes, I did.
What did you observe? What can you tell the jury about what you observed?
I'm proud to say, he's one of the most devoted fathers I think that I've ever seen. Like everything in life was about the children, but when he was with the kids, like the attention that he would give them, you know, it was just constant, playing with them, listening to them, you know, laughing with them, reading to them, Barbies, I mean, you name it, and he was there.
Did you ever observe Johnny treating his children the way you saw his mother treat him when
No.
he was young?
No.
Have you ever seen Johnny hit either of his children?
No.
Have you ever heard your brother raise his voice at his children?
No.
You may have touched on it earlier, and if so, I apologize. But how, if at all, did Johnny communicate with his children when he was shooting a film?
Objection, foundation.
Were you
All right, I'll
with-
sustain the objection if you want to lay a foundation.
fair, understood. Did you have occasion to observe? Were you ever with your brother when he was shooting a film?
Yes.
Did you have occasion to observe your brother communicating with his children while you both were there on set?
Yes. Yes.
So with that, please go ahead.
When, excuse me, when Johnny was filming, most of the time, the family was with him. The family would travel and go, you know, it was like I said earlier, we would get a house and garden and all of that to make sure that there was a home. So his family was with him most of the time.
What about when the children got older and they started going to school? Did that change in any way?
It changed in that they didn't want to disrupt the children's lives when they were going to school. So if Dad had to go off and go work and the children stayed home, this is where we get into, we still maintained a home for the family wherever he was filming, you know, because they would, if they had the opportunity to come back and forth. But at the same time, Johnny would travel back every 2 weeks, you know, to see his kids.
And when you say he would travel back, who was it who made those travel arrangements?
I made the travel arrangements.
Did you have occasion to observe Johnny interact with the mother of his children, Vanessa Paradis, over the 14 years they were together?
Yes, I did.
Would you please tell the jury what you observed about the interactions between Mr. Depp and Vanessa?
What's your objection?
Your Honor.
This is directly relevant.
I'll allow observations. I'll overrule the objection.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. What did you observe about Mr. Depp's interactions with the mother of his children?
They were a great couple. I mean, first you could see that they were friends. They were happy together. They got along great. It was a happy, normal couple.
I'll sustain the objection at this point then.
Thank you.
All right.
Did you ever hear your brother yell at Vanessa?
No.
Objection.
No.
And
Yes, sir.
It's not leading.
4-0.
To what extent if any,
Well, that wasn't the question, Mr. Chair.
404 is the main objection.
Okay, I'll sustain on that objection. Next question.
what, if any, violence did you observe between,
I'll go ahead, finish your question first.
well, if I think you're going to sustain the objection, perhaps I should read.
Maybe we should move on, yes.
Okay, all right. Did Vanessa ever claim that Johnny ever physically abused her?
Objection
No.
foundation calls for hearsay.
All right. Hearsay objection.
And 404.
It's not offered for the proof of it's what she observed, what she heard. She was the personal manager, Your Honor.
That would be hearsay. I'll sustain the objection. Thank you.
Did there come a time when Johnny and Vanessa separated after 14 years?
Yes.
How would you describe their relationship today?
Same objection, 404.
All right.
And calls for hearsay as well, and foundation.
I don't think it calls for hearsay, Your Honor. She's his
I
sister.
understand, but it's a character evidence issue, so I'll sustain the objection.
Who is Amber Heard?
My brother's ex-wife.
When did you first meet Amber Heard?
I first met her when she came to the office for casting on Rum Diary, probably late 2008, I think, somewhere in there.
Did you see Miss Heard on set?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you observe?
When she was working on set, I mostly observed, some of the, I was there for some of the scenes, and in between, she was a bit sort of like, standoffish, had all, people, coming around her, but I don't really have that much time with her on set.
When was Rum Diary actually released?
2011,
Was Johnny in that movie?
yes.
What role, if any, did you have with respect to Rum Diary?
I was one of the producers.
And after seeing Miss Heard on the set in 2009, 2010, when was the next time you saw Miss Heard?
I think the next time I saw her was we were promoting Rum Diary towards the end of 2011, I think. I was not able to go on the full promotional tour where we do screenings for people around the country. But I was able, because my mom was sick, but I was able to attend the one in Los Angeles. So I saw her at that event.
What did you observe? So you attended the premiere?
I attended the premiere and the dinner afterward, yes.
Would you please describe for us what you observed at the premiere?
At the dinner,
At the dinner?
because I sat outside at the premiere. I didn't actually watch the movie. I'd already seen it. I sat at the same table with some of the other people involved in the cast. So I saw Johnny and Amber, they were seated together. I saw them talking quite a bit, and she seemed very friendly that night, yes.
Did there come a time when you learned that Johnny and Amber were romantically involved?
Yes.
When was that?
I don't recall exactly. I know it was sometime after the Rum Diary premiere.
To what extent did you have occasion to observe Johnny and Miss Heard together early in their relationship?
I would see them. There were times when she would come and you know, visit our mom, you know. I would see her then, I would see the two of them then. I didn't really spend a tremendous amount of time with her.
Had you formed any impression of Miss Heard at that time based on your observations?
I did. I did. Look, I didn't know her very well, and I would spend time. Like I said, she would come to my mom's house. I sat with her and my mom.
Object on 404. What was your impression of Amber?
Based on her observation, she's describing what she observed, Your Honor.
Doesn't matter. It's still 404.
I don't think that's right, Your Honor. I think she's describing what she observed.
Right. We want to approach for a moment. Let's start.
Did there come a time when your brother and Ms. Heard started to live together?
Yes.
And when did that occur approximately, if you recall?
I don't recall the timing. I don't recall the time frame. I believe they had moved downtown to the Eastern Columbia building, but I don't remember exactly when that was.
What type of structure was the Eastern Columbia building? Was that a freestanding house or was it apartments?
It's apartments, and he had the penthouses on the top floor.
How many penthouses did your brother own on the top floor of the Eastern Columbia building?
I think it was 5 apartments.
Do you know who lived in those 5 apartments when your brother and Miss Heard went to live there?
I know. I know who lived down there. I know Isaac, a friend of Johnny's named Isaac, lived down there. I know Amber's friend Rocky and her boyfriend lived in one of the penthouses. Amber's sister Whitney lived in one of the penthouses.
When you say Rocky, are you referring to Rocky Pennington?
Yes.
And was her boyfriend Josh Drew?
Josh Drew.
Did Rocky Pennington and Josh Drew pay any rent to your brother?
No.
What about Miss Heard's sister Whitney? Did she pay any rent to your brother?
No.
Do you know why your brother allowed them to live rent-free in his at the ECB?
Because they were.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Foundation, we asked, do you know why? So if she knows, she can answer. I'll allow it all over.
She was his personal manager.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Did you arrange for handling a lot of your brother's bills?
I would give them to the business manager.
Yeah.
But I believe they were Amber's family and friends. That's why he let them live there.
How often did you see your brother when he was living with Miss Heard at the ECB penthouses?
We didn't We didn't see him as often. I didn't see him as often. He pretty much stayed down there. He didn't come back, towards where we were in West Hollywood very often unless he had a reason to.
And on those occasions when you did see your brother, what observations did you make?
He was always in a hurry when he was able to come back. He could never sit and spend the time. It felt like he was always trying to, get back downtown. He just seemed so much sadder. He did not seem himself. He was always his person was much just sadder.
In that time period when your brother and Miss Heard were living at the ECB, did you have occasion to observe them together?
On occasion.
Would you please describe for the jury what you observed on those occasions when you saw your brother and Miss Heard together?
I mean, there's different occasions. I've seen them together when they've come into the office. I mean,
when you saw them together, did they appear to get along?
Objection, Your Honor. Vague and leading.
All right, I'll sustain this to leading. All right, next question.
Did you ever witness them arguing?
Objection, leading.
All right, I'll sustain this to leading.
Did, in your capacity as Johnny's personal manager, do you know whether your brother and Amber ever traveled together?
yes, they did travel together. There were, there were times when, when Johnny had to go do press or film, they traveled together.
What type of travel arrangements did you make for the two of them when they traveled together?
We would get a private plane that took them to whatever the destination was, and make sure that we had, the hotel accommodations taken care of. Part of what we did was to always make sure that we anticipated, everything. So we would do the travel, the hotels, cars, drivers. I would make sure that there was an extra hotel room, for trips when they would go.
Why did you make sure there was an extra hotel room when Johnny and Miss Heard went on trips together?
Because they're...
Objection to the extent that the answer calls for hearsay.
All right.
I don't believe it does.
Okay, that's fine. You can answer, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. I booked the extra hotel rooms because if Johnny was at home or anywhere like that, he was able to, if they argued, he was able to leave the room, leave the argument, and go like he's always done and hide in a different room to get away from it. When they were traveling for, the different reasons for press or whatever, and we booked the hotel rooms, I wanted to make sure that there was an extra room, because it wasn't unusual, for them to have an argument. So I wanted to make sure that there was an extra room.
Did your
him to
brother
have.
ever have occasion to use that extra room that you booked for him?
Yes.
Objection, foundation.
All right.
Calls for
I'll
hearsay.
sustain his foundation if you want to lay a foundation.
I think the foundation was she made all of the travel. Well, I can actually lay it through some
Okay.
other questions as
Okay.
well. She was personal manager. Whose idea was it to book an extra room for your brother when he traveled?
It was my idea.
And why did you do that?
It was my idea because, I saw a repeat happening in life when we were kids and arguments and fighting would start to happen. Our first thing was to go and hide and, get away from it. And since I recognized what felt to be a pattern that was a repeat pattern from his childhood, I wanted to make sure that there was a place that he could do just that.
Mr. Chu, the question was, did Mr. Depp ever use the extra room? And the objection was foundation. So if you want to lay a foundation of how she would have known that he used that extra room, and if not based on hearsay, that's the issue.
And I move to strike that. It's not responsible.
All right, I'll strike that. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you book your brother's hotel accommodations during the 14 years when he was with Vanessa Paradis?
Yes.
Did you ever book an extra room when he was with her?
Objection leading.
No.
Overall, I'll allow that one. Go ahead.
If you could repeat it, I don't think the jury heard that.
I'm sorry. No, I did not.
Did you ever hear your brother and Miss Heard argue?
Objection calls for hearsay. Also.
Oh, I'll overrule that. Go ahead.
So you may answer that.
No.
Did you ever see or hear any physical altercation between your brother and Miss Heard?
No.
What can you tell us about what you did observe of your brother and Miss Heard together?
What to me, when I saw them, to me, he was always trying to make her happy. He always made effort to sort of make her happy. I think she has a very strong personality, and my brother's personality came off much more soft at that point, to me.
Did you observe any occasions in which Miss Heard was nice to your brother?
Yes, I've seen her be nice to him.
Would you please explain that?
I've seen her be nice in offering to bring him a drink or get him whatever. I mean, just a typical nice. I've seen that.
Have you witnessed any occasions on which Miss Heard wasn't nice to your brother?
I have, actually.
Would
I
you
have.
please describe those to the jury?
Yeah. We had, I had on one occasion, because this one really stayed with me. On one occasion, I was at the office and I'd had a meeting with Dior, who had wanted to sit with Johnny and talk about, working together. And Amber had come in and asked if she was interrupting us, and we said no, and we weren't supposed to really talk about the meeting with anyone. But Johnny told Amber that I had just had a meeting with Dior, and that they were interested in him. Her reaction to that was she was in disbelief and sort of disgust, because she said, Dior, why would Dior want to do business with you? They're about class and they're about style, and you don't have style. So it was the insulting kind of taking away that one moment, that insult is there. I've seen the insults multiple times, actually.
What, if anything, did you hear Ms. Heard say about Mr. Depp's physical appearance?
She called him an old fat man.
How did he respond?
I believe he's heard her call him that himself.
Now, Ms. Dembrowski, I'd like to ask you about a specific event that is relevant to this case. And just for the background, I'll say, did there come a time in 2013 when your brother was working with Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones on a documentary?
Yes.
Were you present?
Yes, I was present at the...
Was Ms. Heard there as well?
Yes.
If you could please tell the jury how physically close you were, or how far you were from Ms. Heard while the three of you were on the set.
I was right next to her. They had gotten there, and I was close enough that I hugged her, and was standing next to her. It was a small set.
And when you were standing next to her and when you were hugging her, what, if any, marks or physical injuries did you see?
I didn't see anything.
Did you observe your brother's interactions with Ms. Heard while the three of you were on the set?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you observe her doing?
They were fine. She was laughing and happy and holding his hand and, leaning on him, hugging him.
Did your brother hug him back, or hug her back?
Yes, but it was mostly her hugging.
And switching subjects from that time on the set, did there come a time when you learned that Johnny was going to marry Miss Heard?
Yes.
And this is a little complicated, so I'm just going to ask you in a narrative form. I understand there was a wedding, and that there were a couple of ceremonies. If you could just please describe that to the jury.
There was a wedding celebration that was put together on the island. So they had a wedding ceremony on the island. But prior to going to the island to do that, they actually got married in Los Angeles, because they had to get married in Los Angeles because they couldn't get married, paperwork, etc., on the island. So they got married in LA.
How did you learn that they were going to get married?
We were already working on the celebration part, and I knew that the date was, at some point, they were going to pick a date to try to get married in Los Angeles. But I didn't know the actual date that had been decided until he called me, which was pretty much right before the date.
What was your reaction upon hearing from your brother that he was going to marry Ms. Heard?
I was scared. I was devastated, actually, that it was going to happen as quickly as it was being pushed for. I actually tried to talk him into just waiting a little bit longer, just a little bit, and not rushing.
Why did you want him to wait a little bit longer?
There had been conversations about a prenuptial agreement that had been going on for a while. And as the date was approaching, for the island ceremony, there was no success in the prenuptial conversations. And I knew it was important. His representatives had explained the importance, and I knew it was important to him for his children. And we were rushing to do something without his children being protected.
Specifically, if you could explain to the jury what involvement you had in those discussions about a prenuptial agreement.
Objection, just foundations, discussions with him.
She's testified about her...
I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think, what was your involvement in the discussions involving the prenuptial agreement?
Mostly it was, I spoke with the attorneys and the representatives so that they explained the importance of it and they explained the reasons behind it.
Move to strike hearsay.
I'll allow it.
That means you can keep going.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So that we could have further conversation and with Johnny and there was an attorney that they coordinated with for Amber. So that was where I was involved in the coordinating that part.
Which side wanted a prenup?
Johnny's side wanted a prenup.
And I believe what you said may have gotten lost. Why did Johnny's side want a prenup?
Well, the prenup was to make sure that his children were protected.
That's Jack and Lily Rose?
Jack and Lily Rose, yes.
Did your brother and Ms. Heard ever sign a prenup?
No.
Why not?
Amber didn't sign it.
Did you end up, despite your misgivings, did you end up attending the wedding or the ceremony between your brother and Ms. Heard on the island in the Bahamas?
Yes, I did, but I also attended the actual wedding in Los Angeles.
And that preceded the celebration
Yes.
in Bahamas, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you have occasion to speak with Ms. Heard either at the ceremony, the formal ceremony in Los Angeles, or the celebration in the Bahamas?
I did. At the actual ceremony in Los Angeles, they had the ceremony at our mom's house, and at that ceremony, I didn't have occasion to really speak with Amber. She, Rocky, and Whitney, I don't believe wanted necessarily to speak with me on that day. I did after the ceremony was done, I was standing not far from them, and they were having a conversation. They were having a conversation actually about, about should they leak the information that they had already gotten married at the house to the press, so that they could, maybe they didn't have to worry about the island when they did the celebration. And Amber actually reached out to me and said, because I was standing 7-8 feet away from her, asked my opinion, what I thought about that, which I basically said I didn't know why they would do it, since all the information for the island was already out, and it wasn't going to help them. I didn't know why they would want to leak it at all, but it was up to them. I saw her on the island as well, but on the island she was actually extremely friendly when I got there, because if I'm honest, I debated going. I didn't really want to. I almost didn't, but I took my dad. Dad wanted to go, and I wanted to make sure that I showed up anyway, because I wanted to make sure that, honestly, that my little brother would know that I was always going to be around no matter what. But Amber was extremely friendly and thanked me for coming to her special day. It was a very big day for her.
Can you remember any other interactions you had with Ms. Heard or your brother on the island at the celebration?
Interactions on the island? Not really.
And when was the next time you saw Amber Heard after the celebration on the island?
It would have been when she came back from Australia.
And I will get to that, Your Honor. Is it possible for us to take a very quick break?
Sure, you still have quite a bit of direct left, I assume?
I do have a fair amount, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, why don't we go ahead and have you take your afternoon break of 15 minutes, okay? Again, don't do any outside research and do not talk to anybody about the case. I know you're going to hear me say it so much. If we can just be seated and we're ready to start again. Okay, yes, Mr. Chu?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon again, Ms. Dembrowski. I'm told that both you and I need to speak a little closer to our microphones.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank
Okay.
you. And when we took the break, I think you had just testified that the next time you had seen Ms. Heard was when she had just returned from Australia.
Yes.
What, if anything, did you discuss with Ms. Heard when she returned from Australia?
We met for dinner, a late dinner, and she was telling me that she and Johnny had a fight in Australia, and I was trying to talk to her about the idea that kind of fighting is not normal. It's too much, It's not okay. But she told me that I needed to basically get down off my cross and mind my own business. She said that Johnny liked that she was feisty. She was feisty, and then he loved it. And that Jerry Judge and I needed to stay out of her marriage. So that was the basic conversation.
Did you respond at all when Ms. Heard told you to get off your cross?
I just kept saying that fighting is not normal. This kind of fighting is not normal.
How close were you to Ms. Heard when you were having this conversation?
We were right next to each other, right here.
Did you see any marks or any discoloration on her face?
No.
Now, Ms. Dembrowski, I'd like to shift gears again and ask you about the period in April and May of 2016. If you could please let us know, as of April 2016, what was the state of your mother's health?
Excuse me. Mom had been, she had been in the hospital for quite some time, and like a long, steady pace from November. So by April, she was, we knew that she was towards the end of her life. So that's what April basically was, and it went into May. In May, we gathered everybody to come say goodbye to her.
How often, if at all, did you visit your mother in April 2016?
She was in the hospital, so I was with her pretty much every day. I was a 24/7 when I wasn't, at the office or something,
Did you ever see Johnny at the hospital?
Yes.
How often did you see Johnny at the hospital in April 2016?
I don't know how often I saw him. I mean, he would come and see her, regularly. Even before that, when there was a period we were trying to help her communicate, and he, brought in, different type tools, pens, pencils, drawing, crayons, just to try to help her communicate. He came as often as he could. He was there quite a bit.
And when you said you called the family together in May, would you please explain what you meant?
We were told by the doctors that Mom was at a point where there was nothing else that we could do for her, and so that we should start calling anybody that wanted to, come and spend a little bit of time and say their goodbyes. So we did that. We did that in May. But,
And moving ahead to May 19,
mm-hmm.
2016, what was your mother's condition that day?
She was basically in a coma. She was medicated and just on machines, life support, where it was slowly going away on May 19th.
How do you know that?
I was with her.
Did you see your brother in the hospital that day?
Yes.
What happened the next day, May 20th, 2016?
Well, Mom passed away that morning. We had all the family was there. Johnny was there with his kids until the wee morning hours of May 20th. My kids, my sister, we were all there spending our last bits of time, and everybody else had gone home. And Mom passed away probably a few hours after that, maybe 5-6 hours after that.
Who was with your mother when she passed?
I was.
Who, if anyone, told Johnny that your mother had passed?
Sorry.
Take your time.
I did. I called him and I called my our other siblings to tell them.
And I'm sorry, I know this is painful. How did Johnny react when you told him that your mother had passed?
Well, he was sad, but there was also there's a relief that suffering is done. So. He was mostly trying to make sure that I was okay, and I was going to leave and not stay there and, sort of take on everything by myself.
So he asked about how you were doing.
Oh, yes, that became quite a big topic. yes.
Ms. Dembrowski, did you see Johnny the next day, Saturday, May 21, 2016?
I did. I'd gone to his house the night we lost Mom. I think we all kind of gathered our children, right? And I had my sister with me, so I had driven her back on the Saturday, and we were going to go to the funeral home. So I was, while I was waiting for her, I went to go check on Johnny and see if he was okay, and wanted to go.
And did you check on Johnny Saturday morning, the 21st?
Yes, I went to see him because he was. We had talked about maybe he would also go to the funeral home, but when I got there, he seemed upset because he and Amber had been fighting.
What else happened when you first met with your brother on the morning of the 21st when you were talking about going to the funeral home?
I went to go see if he was going to go with us. I got there, he was upset. Excuse me, because they were fighting. I got upset because of the day that was chosen to fight. But I went ahead and left and went to the funeral home with my sister, and then came back that evening.
Why were you upset about their fighting on that day in particular?
We had just lost our mom the day before, so I feel like that there might be the need for a little compassion, no fighting on that day.
Did Johnny end up going with you to the funeral home that day?
No, I went ahead and went, and he was gathering his stuff because he had to go pick up some items because he was going to go on tour.
Did you see Johnny again that day once you left him to go to the funeral home?
Yeah, I came back that evening. I came back. I was taking care of my sister for a bit, and then before I left to go home, I stopped at his house to make sure that he was okay, and I saw him then.
And what happened when you went over to see that he was okay?
He was talking to a couple of people. I saw him briefly. He seemed to be all right, and I spoke to Jerry Judge, and they had just come back from him picking up items down at the downtown at the loft.
So when you met him the second day that time, when you met him the second time that day on May 21, did you meet with him at his Sweetser house or at the ECB?
No, I went to the Sweetser house. He had gone down to the penthouse to pick up some of his stuff because he was going to be leaving, to go on tour. And I just stopped by after they had just gotten back.
And as of that time, the evening of May 21, your mother had just passed. What plans, if any, had been made for a funeral service for your mother?
We hadn't made any plans for a funeral service. We wanted to wait until we could get, all the friends and family, because we weren't expecting the date necessarily. But we wanted to wait till we can get all friends and family to come together to have more of a dinner, like a celebration like Mom would want at her favorite place. So we waited. We decided to schedule it like a month or so out instead of immediate.
So you had referred to your brothers having plans to go on tour that next week, obviously not knowing that his mother was going to pass.
Right.
What, if any, other formal events had been planned for that next week before he was going on tour?
Well, he had the premiere for Alice that was on the Monday night. Mom passed on Friday, and the premiere was Monday night. And then he was going to take a flight after that, immediately after the premiere. He had to get on a plane to go to New York to meet the band and go on to Europe.
And when you say Alice, just so the jury may understand, if you could please explain to them what Alice is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alice, and I'm so sorry right now. I don't know if it's Alice Through the Looking Glass, maybe was that one's name, or the Alice in Wonderland Disney series, where he played Hatter.
And so that premiere for Alice in Wonderland was going to be on Monday. And what day was Mr. Depp planning to go on tour with his music band?
He had to be there Tuesday morning. So we had to schedule it. It was very tight. We scheduled a plane for him immediately after the premiere. He would get on the plane.
So he was expected to leave on Tuesday. So how long was he supposed to be on tour?
I believe it was a couple of months, something like that.
And going back to the premiere, how, if at all, did your mother's passing affect the premiere of Alice in Wonderland?
We didn't let anybody know that Mom had passed away. We kept that really close to just our, just family and friends, because he had to go do the premiere, and with the premiere he's on the carpet, and on the carpet he does interviews, and it didn't feel right on many levels to have him where people knew that Mom had passed away, and while he's trying to do interviews to sort of, give their condolences and their sympathies and all of that. So we kind of kept it just with us so that it wouldn't become a worldwide thing, and he could just do what he was supposed to do and do his job. And
Did you think he could handle hearing all that sympathy at the premiere?
I didn't think he should handle. I thought it would be very hard on him. It would be very hard, question after question, and condolences. And
Did there come a time when Ms. Heard filed for divorce from your brother?
yes,
When was that?
I learned that she had filed on the Tuesday morning. After that premiere, the Tuesday morning, I was at the funeral home, and I got a call from the attorney to let me know that she had filed.
Where was Johnny when you learned that Ms. Heard had filed for divorce?
He was already in New York and getting ready to travel to Europe for the tour.
How did you react initially when you heard from Mr. Depp's attorney that Ms. Heard had filed for divorce?
I mean, I think understandably, the timing of this, it made me sick, actually. It really made me feel ill. It made me sad, frustrated. I can't even find the word to describe how I felt when I heard that the divorce was filed the day after, while I'm at the funeral home.
You didn't think the timing of Ms. Hurd's filing was appropriate?
I did not. I thought something like that might have been able to wait.
Did there come a time when you learned that Ms. Hurd had also filed for a restraining order against Johnny?
Yes. Yes, I think I heard that also from the attorney. I believe the day before. It was a Thursday, I think. I learned that one.
So this was 2 days after your brother had left for New York?
Yes. Yes, because I was shocked at that. I was shocked at that, and concerned that he was out of town and didn't know if he needed to be there. He was gone, you know. And I was asking the attorney, and they said, no, he doesn't have to be there. No one has to be there. Amber won't be there. No one will be there. Just attorneys. It's a very simple process.
Did Johnny attend the restraining order hearing?
No, he was not in town. He wasn't in the country.
Did you see any press coverage of the restraining order hearing?
Yes, I did.
Would you please tell the jury what you saw or read?
Objection, calls for hearsay.
Not asking for the proof of what was in the articles. It's a present sense impression.
Relevant. Why is it relevant?
All right, I'll sustain it to hearsay and relevance.
Okay. Did you see was there press coverage of the hearing?
There was a tremendous amount of press coverage.
Did you read any of it?
I did read some of it. I saw some of it.
Putting aside the truth or falsity of what you saw, what did you see?
Relevance.
And why is that relevant?
And hearsay.
Was the...
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question. Okay.
How did you feel when you read the press?
Relevance. How the witness felt is irrelevant.
What's the relevance, Mr. Shea?
I think it's relevant to her testimony, Your Honor, but I can move on.
Okay, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Moving ahead 2 years in time, did you see Ms. Hurd's Washington Post op-ed when it was published in December 2018?
Yes.
What did you think Ms. Hurd's op-ed was about?
Relevance.
It's entirely relevant. They're trying to argue somehow that people didn't understand what the op-ed meant. We heard an opening where there was...
I want you to approach,
yes, Your Honor.
please.
Ms. Dembrowski, have you had any discussions with your brother about the op-ed?
Yes.
Object to anything after the yes is hearsay.
I'm not sure if it is or not.
It's a yes or no question.
Okay, all right, next question.
as Mr. Depp's brother and as his personal manager, do you have any understanding how the publication of the op-ed has affected your brother's career?
Objection, foundation, Your Honor, and hearsay.
I don't know if it's
You-
hearsay.
Oh, I apologize, Your
Yeah,
Honor.
that's fine.
But she's worked with her brother for
I'll
several
allow that,
decades.
but let's see where the answer goes.
You may answer.
I'm sorry, would you mind asking it again?
Do you have an understanding of how the publication of the op-ed has affected your brother's career?
Yes. The op-ed, the op-ed is written with the way it was written, the wordings within the op-ed make it very clear of a time frame.
Objection, Your Honor.
Get the director to answer that question again. Maybe you should ask it again.
How has the publication of Ms. Heard's op-ed, putting aside for a moment its relationship to your brother, its references to your brother, how has it affected his career?
I believe there's a negative effect on anyone's career when there's accusations, as there have been.
How has it affected him personally?
Objection, foundation.
She's his sister, Your Honor.
I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Personally, I know he doesn't want people to feel that he could ever be that type of person, which he isn't. And to know that actually that is something that is attached to him now, which trickles down to his children, where I think that part, more than anything, is the part that has bothered him, the fact that his children have to, have this in their life.
Ms. Dembrowski, do you believe that your brother physically abused Ms. Heard?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance, foundation.
I'll sustain the objection.
Do you believe that Ms. Heard is a public figure representing domestic violence?
No, I don't. I believe the opposite.
Excuse me. I'll sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your
Thank
Honor.
you. You can strike that answer, please. Thank you.
As his sister and as his personal manager for decades, are you aware of any occasion on which any woman other than Ms. Heard has ever accused your brother of any type of physical abuse?
Objection, foundation, hearsay.
I'll allow the answer.
No.
How has Ms. Heard's op-ed impacted your life?
Objection, relevance.
What's the relevance?
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I
Okay.
have right
All
now.
right. I'll withdraw a question. Okay. All right. Cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Ms. Dembrowski.
Good afternoon.
So I believe we covered some of this, but just want to make sure. So you're employed at a company your brother owns, right?
Yes,
It's called Infinitum Nile?
yes,
Is that right? And it's Mr. Depp's production company?
yes,
And you're the president of that company, right?
yes,
And that is your only source of income, correct?
I have other projects that I work on the side.
It's your only job, right?
It's my full-time job, yes.
Right. And job-wise, you don't have any other sources of income other than Infinitum Nile, right?
Other projects, I have the opportunity with other projects to make more money.
Okay. All right. Your Honor, may I approach?
All right, if you could just show counsel what
Sure.
you're approaching with.
It's just a copy of your deposition.
All right. You're just giving, I think he's just giving copies, Mr. Chu. Oh, I would assume it wouldn't be. Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Ms. Dembrowski, do you remember giving a deposition in this case?
Yes,
And just a couple months ago, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And you remember before you started that deposition being under oath, right?
Yeah,
Okay. And you swore to tell the truth?
yeah,
Okay. And you were asked questions by counsel for Ms. Hurd, and you gave answers, right?
yes.
Could you please take a look at page 19 of that deposition transcript in front of you?
I'm sorry. Okay.
And do you see on page 19, line 8 through 10, you were asked a question, do you have any other sources of income other than from Infinitum Nile? And you answered no, job-wise, no.
Right,
Do you see that?
I do,
And was that testimony correct?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
But it's the same as what I said today.
Now, you have a huge financial interest in your brother's career, right? The money that Infinitum Nile makes comes from money that Mr. Depp makes, correct?
It hasn't always historically, no.
What else does it come from?
We've had deals with other entities, companies.
And for the most part, the better your brother does in his career, the more money Infinitum Nile makes, though, correct?
I don't think it's exactly like that, no.
And you have your brother has done projects that Infinitum Nile has been the production company for, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you have a financial interest in that company, correct?
I'm an employee.
Okay. Are you employed by his other companies as well?
I'm employed by Infinitum Nile.
Are you employed by the other companies that your brother has?
No,
Where do you receive your paycheck from? Infinitum Nile?
Infinitum Nile.
And you have a financial interest in how Infinitum Nile performs financially, correct?
I have a salary that I get, so that's not a financial interest if you're asking if I get a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
No.
You wouldn't consider salary financial interest? Is that your testimony?
I consider it a salary, yes, but it sounds like you're asking something different. I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, so the bottom line is you draw a salary from Infinitum Nile,
Yes,
and that's your brother's production company, correct?
yes,
Now, you feel protective of your younger brother, always have, right?
yes,
And you testified earlier today about Mr. Depp's reactions to some of your mother's anger growing up.
Mm-hmm.
How old was Mr. Depp during the periods you were talking about? Like when he was a kid? Is that basically what you were talking about?
The reactions to mom's anger began as when we were children, and we had the same reaction always, was to leave.
Right, and when you were testifying earlier about Mr. Depp's reaction being to leave, you were referring to when he was, before you left the house, when he was a kid, right?
Yes, but we left the house not too far apart from each other, but yes.
When Mr. Depp would leave as a child during the times when your mother was angry at him, was he addicted to drugs back then?
No,
Was he addicted to alcohol?
no.
You testified a little bit about Mr. Depp's former partner, Vanessa Paradis. You were friends with Vanessa, right?
It was a family, so.
Right. You considered her family.
Yeah,
Right.
she was part of the family, yes.
Right. And you were friendly with her?
Yes,
You liked her?
yes.
You were happy that your brother was with her?
I was happy that my brother was happy.
Yeah. And you didn't want to see him split up from Vanessa, did you?
You know what, I wanted both of them to be happy. It didn't matter to me if they split up or not.
You were devastated when they split up, weren't you?
I don't think I was devastated.
Were you happy about it?
No, I wanted my family to be okay.
What were your emotions when you learned that your brother was splitting from Vanessa?
If I had to say, I was probably, a little sad for both of them, but beyond that, I don't really recall big emotions.
And you were sad because you were losing her as part of what you just testified was your family, right?
No,
You weren't sad about that?
no.
Now, on May 21st, 2016, you were asked some questions about that, and I know your mother's passing must have been very tough, so I'm not going to ask specific questions about that. I'm going to ask questions about the next day just to make sure that I had your testimony right. Can you remind me, you said you saw your brother the morning of May 21st?
I stopped by there at some point in the daytime, in the early part of the day.
Approximately what time?
I honestly don't remember.
Was it before lunch?
I don't remember the timing. It was just daytime.
It was daytime. And you testified that when you stopped by there for the first time that day that you were upset because it seemed like he and Amber had been fighting. Is that what you said?
I said that they had been arguing. And I've said that I didn't love that they were arguing on. It was a horrible day to argue on.
And that was, your testimony was that you were upset that they had been arguing when you stopped by that during the daytime, right? Okay. Now, you have no understanding of any of Amber or Mr. Depp's communications leading up to May 21st, correct?
I don't know that I have a lot of that, no.
Okay. But your testimony is that when you stopped by during the daytime on May 21st, that they had been fighting and that made you upset. Is that right? I'm just trying to understand what you testified to.
It's not that it made me upset. I found it upsetting.
Did you ever become aware that they hadn't actually seen each other or communicated at all before he came over at 8 p.m. on May 21st?
Foundation.
She's testified that she said that they were fighting earlier in the day. I'm asking her if she ever became aware that they hadn't actually seen each other or talked that day.
I'll allow the question, just go ahead.
I'll ask it again. Did you ever become aware that Amber and Mr. Depp hadn't seen each other or talked that day before he came to the Eastern Columbia building the evening of May 21st?
No, I just know that what I understood was that they had a fight, whether it was over the phone or, I don't know. They were arguing.
Now, when your mother was in the last days of her life in the hospital, Amber visited her, right?
Amber did come one time by herself, if that's what you're referring to. She did come one time, shortly before Johnny was also coming.
And she visited her actually more than one time, correct?
I don't recall her visiting on her own more than one time, no. I remember her coming one time because I didn't know she was coming. And Johnny was actually also coming.
Right.
So they ended up there together.
I guess I'm a little confused because you just testified that she only visited one time.
Alone. This is what I'm saying. I only remember the one time alone, where she showed up alone. I only remember one time. And Johnny came shortly after she was there.
And other times she visited with Johnny or other people, is that right?
She visited with Johnny sometimes.
During the time that Amber and Johnny were together, you became aware that he was using drugs and alcohol excessively, correct?
Objection beyond the scope, correct?
All right.
Your Honor, she's testified to what she observed during their relationship. I think it's within the scope.
Your Honor, I think her testimony is that she's never observed Mr. Depp using drugs. I think this is beyond the scope.
No, I'll overrule the objection. You can ask the question. Go ahead. Do you just want to ask the question again?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
During the time that Amber and Johnny were dating, did you become aware that he was using drugs or alcohol excessively?
I became aware that he had been drinking, and during the time they were dating, I became aware of, at one point, a certain medication, yes.
And you formed the opinion that not only had he been drinking, but that he was drinking excessively, correct?
I don't know that I formed excessively, but he was drinking.
You became aware that he was using booze, right?
I knew he was drinking.
And you knew he was using cocaine, right?
I never saw him do that, so
You became aware that he was using cocaine, correct?
I never saw him use anything like that. I became aware of people saying that.
And you became so concerned about that that you told your brother to stop using cocaine, correct?
I don't know that I remember telling him to stop using cocaine. I think I might have told him anything that he was doing, he should stop doing.
Heather, can you pull up Exhibit 214, please? Your Honor, I'll obviously move for admission before it's published to the jury.
That's fine.
Just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be on their screen. Can you flip it? Just trying to figure out how to rotate this, Your Honor.
If it's coming from her computer screen, you have to rotate it on there. I mean,
I figured.
all this is
poking
doing
at
is
the
mirroring
screen.
whatever was on the computer screen. There's nothing we can. All right.
I wouldn't say that.
Sorry for the delay, Your Honor.
All
Appreciate
right.
your patience.
Yes, sir.
If I may, Your Honor, the issue is what's on the screens
Okay.
is not on the
Okay.
laptop, so that's the difficulty.
Okay. I don't know. Do you want to unplug it and plug it back in just to see? To the system?
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, I think we have it.
When you turn it off and on, it works at everything.
That's right. That's the secret. Okay. All right. That looks better. Ms. Dembrowski, I'd like to direct your attention to the four texts in the middle of the page. If you look in the from column, there's a name that says Christi Dembrowski and it has a number. Is that your number?
Yes.
And are those texts from you to your brother, Johnny Depp?
Yes.
And those texts were sent on or about February 5th, 2014?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of Defendant's Exhibit 214.
Any objection to 214?
Can I just say something?
No,
though?
just wait, ma'am. Just wait for a
I'm
question.
sorry.
Yes, sure.
apologize for the delay, Judge.
All right, so you're moving in 214, we'll receive it redacted? That's
Yes, Your Honor.
correct? Okay. Over objection, that's fine. And you wanted to publish just the redacted parts, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. That's fine. Right now, you just have the dates up. Is that what you want to start with?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. You can publish
Thank
that to
you.
the jury. Okay.
Ms. Dembrowski, I just, because we can only show part of this page, do you see that these, you just testified these were text messages between you and Mr. Depp, right? And do you see that these text messages were sent on February 5th, 2014?
Yes.
The bottom three? Okay. And those bottom three, you just looked at when we saw the whole page, and I know it's a little cumbersome for the jury not seeing that, but you testified that the bottom three were text messages from you to your brother, right?
Yes.
Okay. Heather, could you just scroll to the right, please? That's good. Thank you. So on February 5th, 2014, you sent 3 texts to your brother. You sent one that said, stop drinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said one that said, stop Coke, right?
Yes.
So I assume you weren't talking about the soft drink, right?
It doesn't appear to be.
You were talking about cocaine, correct?
I don't know what these are in reference to, so I remember they brought this up at my deposition, and these are something that they're, I don't know I don't know if there's more context to them. I don't know what they're in reference to. I know what they say, but I don't know what they're in reference to.
And what they say is that on February 5th, 2014, you were telling your brother, Johnny Depp, to stop using cocaine, correct?
No, I wrote those words, but that's what I'm saying. I don't know that I was telling him to stop doing that. You know, in context, it would be different. It could be a different scenario.
Well, let's take it word by word. Coke, when you wrote Coke, you meant cocaine, not the soft drink, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you wrote pills, you meant prescription pills, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were telling him on February 5th, 2014, to stop drinking, stop Coke, and stop pills, right?
I wrote the words.
And did you have any reason to believe when you wrote that Mr. Depp had been on a bender recently?
I don't recall writing this, so I don't recall the context of it. I understand that the words are there, but I don't recall the timing or the writing of it. I don't recall anything about it necessarily.
You weren't joking when you wrote that, right? It wasn't a joke, right?
I probably was not joking, but you know, maybe I was repeating something that someone else told me to write.
You were telling your brother to stop drinking, stop cocaine, and stop pills because you believed that he had a problem with drinking cocaine and pills, correct?
I didn't believe he had the problem as much as someone else was trying to make me believe that he had the problem.
Did you have any reason to believe that Mr. Depp had been on a recent bender?
I didn't witness benders. I don't, you know what I mean? So I'm not involved in the benders.
Understood. I'm asking, at the time when you sent these 3 text messages on February 5th, 2014, did you have any reason to believe that Mr. Depp had been on a recent bender?
I couldn't tell you about February, whatever date that is back then, and what I would know at this moment.
Did you have any reason to be worried about Mr. Depp when you sent these texts?
Again, I don't know what was happening in life at that time. I don't recall that period, the dates. I don't recall I don't recall anything about that time. These texts, I know what the words are, but I don't know what the context is of them.
Right, and so I'm asking you a question as best I can, which was, when you sent these texts, did you have any reason to be worried about Mr. Depp's use of alcohol, cocaine, or pills?
Again, I don't recall the time period of sending these texts, so I don't know that I would have any reason at that time. I don't know.
Would you have sent the text if you didn't have a reason to be worried about his use of alcohol, cocaine, or pills?
I could send those 3 separate lines like that, 3 separate texts. I could do that if it was, there's different reasons that maybe I could do that. It doesn't mean that was me giving him a message.
Have you ever sent texts to anyone else to tell them to stop drinking, stop coke, or stop pills before?
Again, I don't know that I'm telling him to stop drinking, stop coke, and stop pills. That's what I'm saying. It's the context of this.
And I appreciate that, but that wasn't my question. My question was, have you ever sent texts to anyone else in your life telling them to stop drinking, stop coke, or stop pills?
I don't believe I've ever told anybody to stop doing any of those things in a text message, but I also don't know that that's what I was doing here, is what I'm trying to say.
But you wrote those words to Mr. Depp, right?
I wrote those words.
And you didn't love the behavior that Mr. Depp was engaging in around this time frame, did you?
I don't know the time frame. I don't know what time frame you're actually referring to.
Well, in the days leading up on or around February 5th, 2014, you didn't love the behavior that Johnny Depp was engaging in, did you?
I don't recall anyone's behavior from February 2014. I don't recall February 2014.
Would it refresh your recollection perhaps to see other text messages that you sent on or around this time to determine whether or not you were worried about Mr. Depp?
If there's other context, I guess. I don't know.
Why don't we do this? Heather, can you please pull up Exhibit 210? Your Honor, may I approach?
All right.
Thank you. Ms. Dembrowski, do you recognize this document as a text message chain between you and Amber Heard on February 3rd, 2014?
Yes.
And you see the chain starts at about 5:20 p.m., right?
Yes.
And there's messages from Amber to you are the ones on the right, correct, in blue?
Yes.
And messages from you to Amber are the ones in gray on the left, right?
Yes.
Okay. And if you go, well, take a minute and just read that first page, please. Does this refresh your recollection about a text conversation you had with Amber on or about February 3rd, 2014?
Well, I can see this as our text exchange.
Okay. And does this refresh your recollection about concern that you may have had about the behavior that Mr. Depp was engaged in on or around that time?
Again,
I'll allow that question. Go ahead.
I'll ask it again, does this refresh your recollection about behavior that Mr. Depp may have been engaging in around that time?
I remember this period and what Amber was believing that he was doing, yes, at this period.
Okay. But does this refresh your recollection about your worry and concern for your brother Johnny Depp around this time?
I still don't recall having a severe worry around this time.
Okay. Well, before you didn't recall having any worry. So does this at least refresh your recollection that you had some worry?
Honestly, I don't recall having a worry. I've had worries in the years, but I don't recall having a worry at this time. I don't recall it.
Okay. So did you have any reason to doubt what you were reading from Ms. Heard in these texts?
To be honest, she would write things quite often or explain things quite often, and it's a bit more dramatic, maybe, than what we understood it to be, or maybe even sometimes the instances were different than what she was describing. So,
But in any event, this conversation that you had with Ms. Heard gave you concern enough to tell your brother, stop coke, stop pills, stop booze, right?
No, I don't think it did.
It didn't. And I've asked this before, but we'll take a look at this. Is it true you didn't love the behavior he was engaging in around this time, right?
Again, I didn't witness a lot of the behavior that people are, that you guys are referencing. I didn't witness a lot of it.
Take a look at page 2,
Okay.
please. And just take a minute to read that, and then I'll have some questions about both of the pages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What you had been told by Ms. Heard on the first 2 pages of these texts gave you concern about Mr. Depp's behavior and made you not love anything that he was engaging in behavior-wise around this time, right?
What I had heard from her in these texts, I didn't really love where life was at the time.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of these 2 pages in their entirety for the reasons that we discussed, both as impeachment of the witness.
All right, there are other statements in here that I do find as hearsay, so we can work with it. I'll reserve on that for this time, maybe, and we'll have other issues with it outside the presence of the jury, and we'll work on redactions, okay?
That sounds good. Can I ask her questions just about her language?
Okay.
And then we can work on redactions?
Yeah, yes, sir.
We reserve our.
Okay, yes, sir.
On the first page, Your Honor, or I'm sorry, on the first page, Ms. Dembrowski, you write, "Where are the kids?" Why did you write that?
I don't
Yes,
know.
sir.
I don't know. I mean, I remember they asked me that at the deposition. I'm not sure.
You wrote that because you had concerns about where Mr. Depp's kids were at this time, right?
Well, if she was saying he wasn't home, I was asking where the kids were.
Right. Because you were concerned for the kids' well-being, particularly when Mr. Depp was in this sort of state, correct?
No, I was curious about where the kids were if he wasn't home.
Were you ever concerned about the impact on the kids of Mr. Depp's drug use and alcohol use?
No.
So when you wrote, "Where are the kids?" you had no concern for their actual well-being. Is that right?
The concern, it's not that kind of concern. She's saying he's not home. I was wondering where the kids were so that they weren't alone.
When you wrote her on page 2, "Do you want to come to office to talk?" you wrote that because you were concerned about what was going on with Mr. Depp at that point, right?
No, actually, I wrote that so that she could come to the office so that we could talk
Right.
about all of it,
All of what?
of her text.
Your Honor, I'd ask for permission to publish the bottom text on page 2 that I think,
It's not up here. You just mean her text.
sorry. And I guess while she's pulling that up, I'd move for partial admission of Exhibit 210 with redactions to be.
I'm going to reserve on that.
Okay.
All right, that's, all right, I'm still going to reserve on the admission of it, so I'm not going to show it to the jury at this time, okay?
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you. But you can ask your questions about it.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. When you wrote Ms. Heard on February 3rd, 2014 at 5:42 p.m., Ms. Dembrowski, "Worry about everything," you were telling her to worry about everything and all the types of behavior that Mr. Depp was engaging in at that time, right?
I was not telling her to worry about anything. That's the way I wrote that. Sounds like I say, I worry about everything.
You're saying that you're worrying about everything? Is that right?
Yes, as a whole.
Okay, so in contrast to what you testified a few minutes ago, you actually were very worried around this time frame, correct?
I was worried about what life was. That's what I had said.
Right. And the life that you were referring to here, what was going on in life was Mr. Depp's drug and alcohol abuse, correct?
What was going on in life was someone who constantly wanted to point out some sort of drug and alcohol abuse.
Is that unfair for a spouse not to want their husband to abuse drugs and alcohol?
It's not unfair at all.
So was that a negative to you that Ms. Heard didn't love that?
I'm sorry?
Was that a negative to you that Ms. Heard didn't love Mr. Depp's drug and alcohol abuse? Was that unreasonable of her?
To me, it was exaggerated is the problem, so.
It was exaggerated. But you testified that you personally have no personal knowledge of your brother doing cocaine.
I never saw him do it, no.
Okay. But you had enough concern to text him, stop doing coke, stop the pills, and stop the drinking, correct?
No, I really don't think that's what I was doing with him.
And what were you You weren't talking about the Super Bowl, right? You were talking about drinking.
I understand,
Coke and
I
and
understand.
pills.
But the way it's written, and I know my writing, the way it's written, I don't feel like what I was doing was me giving him an order to do that. I wouldn't typically do that. So
You're recommending-
there's other context somewhere that, for that.
Right, and that's what we're trying to explore is what is that context? Because you're very direct in those texts that the jury just looked at. Stop the booze, stop the pills, stop the coke. So if you weren't telling him to stop the booze, stop the pills, and stop the coke, what were you telling him?
I could have been telling him that, because I've had this conversation before, I could have been telling him, that in order to make her not constantly accusing, this is what she would need.
Right. You didn't write those words in your text, though, right?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And when you said in the February 3rd text message exchange with Ms. Heard, I don't love any of it. I really want to be able to talk with him. That was you expressing concern about Mr. Depp's drinking and drug use, correct?
That was me expressing concern about what life was. And there was arguments all the time, and it felt like there was just constant unpleasantness.
Right. And would it be unfair? Well, let me ask it this way. That unpleasantness, to your knowledge, was caused in part, at least, by your brother's drug and alcohol abuse, right?
I don't know that.
Did you ever reach your own conclusion that your brother had a problem with drugs and alcohol?
I knew my brother was drinking.
I'm sorry.
I knew my brother was drinking. But in terms of like drugs, honestly, I had only one medication that I really knew of that, was an issue for him.
And what was that?
I don't remember the name of the medication. It was a prescription medication.
What was it?
It was like a pain medication that he had been taking for a long time.
Okay. And that was what you were referring to when you said stop pills, was prescription pain medication, correct?
Again, I wasn't necessarily referring to anything in particular. I know I wrote those words. I don't know the context of the words.
Okay. But in any event, you don't dispute that on February 5th, 20, whatever date that was, on February 5th, 2014, you wrote to your brother, stop drinking, stop coke, stop pills, right?
I wrote those words, but I don't know the context of the words.
Now, February 2014 wasn't the first time that you had communications with Ms. Heard relating to concerns about drug and alcohol abuse, right? By Mr. Depp, correct?
I don't know.
Heather, if you could pull up Exhibit 163, please.
What's the exhibit number, I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're on 163. While she's pulling that up, Ms. Dembrowski, let me ask you this. You knew that Mr. Depp's drug and alcohol problem was affecting his relationship with Ms. Heard, right?
I knew that she would say that. I mean, I knew that she would say that she had issues with, him with drugs and alcohol.
And you knew from those communications that it was negatively impacting their relationship, right?
I knew that she would write me about them, you know, and I knew that she would, I know that she would, you know, try to talk about them, but, and I know that she would say that they were negatively impacting. I don't know that that was the whole situation that they had going on, to be honest, though.
Well, you didn't disbelieve her when she told you that, right?
When she told me,
What you just testified to, that drinking and drugs were negatively impacting their relationship. You didn't disbelieve her, right?
oh, I didn't necessarily think it was true, no.
You didn't think it was true?
That it was negatively impacting their relationship?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily think it was 100% true, no.
Well, you just said true and then 100% true. So
True.
I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out where you're going with this. Or is it your testimony today that you never believed Miss Heard when she would talk to you about Johnny's drugs and drinking?
No, I think you're taking it to an extreme.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm sorry if I am. So just explain to me what is. That's not your testimony. So.
I think she exaggerated things quite a bit.
But you tried to help Amber deal with Mr. Depp's drugs and drinking, correct?
I tried to make sure that I was helpful to Amber as best I could, yes.
If you can look at the document in front of you, Exhibit 163, please. This is a text exchange between you and Miss Heard on March 22nd, 2013, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And do you remember earlier you testified about being present during the filming of a documentary about Keith Richards?
Yes.
This was right around that time frame, correct?
I don't know.
Do you recall when that was?
I don't recall the dates.
And actually, one thing I wanted to ask you about that while we're at it is you testified earlier about not seeing cuts or bruises on her face. You remember that? Or do you have no knowledge whether she was wearing makeup or not that night, right?
I don't recall if she was wearing makeup or not. She typically did not.
Okay. And you weren't specifically looking for cuts or bruises because you suspected that Mr. Depp had abused her, right?
I would have no reason to look for cuts or bruises, but I would think if they were there, I would see them.
Okay. So if you look at page 1, Exhibit 163, and Your Honor, I'd move for permission to publish.
No, Your Honor, we object.
I'm going to sustain that objection.
I figured you would. But
Okay,
can I do the same thing and ask her about her words to Miss Heard, and then we can reserving the right to publish it to the jury
You
depending
can
on
ask
Your
if
Honor's
it
ruling?
refreshes her memory about
Right.
the conversations you're trying to discuss,
Sure.
yes.
Thank you. So, Ms. Dembrowski, do you recall having a conversation with Ms. Heard on or about March 22nd, 2013, in which Ms. Heard was expressing concerns to you about Mr. Depp's behavior?
No, I don't recall dates, so no.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and take a look at this document, please? And let's start with, just tell me when you're done with page 1, please.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Ms. Dembrowski, I think that's you on the screen, which is okay if you want to mark it out.
We can clear it up. We got it.
I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Doing their own redactions.
Okay.
Okay, I've read it.
Okay, so When you texted Miss Heard, well, first of all, does this refresh your recollection about a conversation that you and Miss Heard had on March 22nd, 2013, relating to Miss Heard's concerns about Mr. Depp's behavior?
It really doesn't, but I see it here. It doesn't.
But you don't dispute that it is a conversation that the two of you had?
This is a text exchange between the two of us, yes.
Okay. When you wrote, "Don't be sorry," exclamation point, I am not completely sure if what is going on or why, but I don't love what it is. What did you mean by that?
I'm not 100% sure. I believe I probably meant, once again, how life was.
Right. Life including Mr. Depp's conduct toward my client, Amber Heard, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you wrote, "It is sad and I am sorry you guys are going through this. I'm here if there is anything I can do." You were talking about you were sad that they were going through the challenges that drugs and alcohol on behalf of Mr. Depp were posing to their relationship, correct?
I'll allow it if she can answer.
I don't think that I'm saying that I'm sad about that. I'm saying that I'm sad, about whatever it is that, that they're going through, but I don't know exactly what it is that they're going through.
Right. And right, two texts underneath that, Ms. Heard tells you what they're going through, right?
She does go into about, what they have going on.
And then below that, you say, "I think with anyone in that place, confrontation unfortunately doesn't help, and sometimes conversations can seem like confrontations." Do you see that? Mm-hmm. Were you suggesting to Ms. Heard that she shouldn't have a conversation with Mr. Depp about what drugs and alcohol did to him because it could seem like a confrontation?
No, I was not suggesting that at all.
What did you mean by it?
Honestly, what I was trying to do is trying to Amber, Miss Heard, she could be very, very vocal. And so what I was trying to do was, if they were having a conversation, if it wasn't going well, I was trying to tell her that, maybe, sometimes conversations, if you're vocal, really loud, they're more confrontational. Like, just to, whatever it is, just have a nice, easy conversation.
Okay, well, let's just go to I just want to look at one more text on the top of the next page, Heather, please. When you write Miss Heard on March 22nd, 2013, you say disagreeing, reasoning, nudging, all can seem like confrontations. I am not sure of the volume or when some is likely to wear off, question mark. Mm-hmm. First of all, when you were talking about volume or when some is likely to wear off, you're talking about drugs or alcohol, correct?
She said in the text prior, right?
Yeah.
I'm asking what...
No, I understand. I'll sustain the objection.
And I'm asking what you're referring to, without referring to Ms. Heard's text prior, when you say, I'm not sure of the volume or when some is likely to wear off. What are you referring to?
I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say is, she had all kinds of things that she said in the text prior. I'm referring to, like, volume of, even just voices, even you can see where I say, like, the nudging and all of that. There was a certain way that you learned to try to talk with Amber to keep things calm.
And when you said when, I thought she was.
All right, finish your, Mr. Chu, that's fine. Thank you, I appreciate it. I understand, I'll let her finish her answer. That's fine, Mr. Chu.
Thank you. There was a certain way that, ultimately you learn to talk to Amber, to sort of keep things calm. So you would pacify her. You would sort of, just go along with all of her conversations, whatever, so that we would placate her all the time to keep things calm. That's what we did.
And so when you said disagreeing, reasoning, nudging, all can seem like confrontations, were you telling Ms. Heard that she shouldn't voice any concerns about her significant other's drug or alcohol abuse?
Voice any concerns to who?
To him. That she shouldn't nudge him about it or try to reason with him about drug and alcohol abuse or his behavior? Is that what you were saying, that she shouldn't do that because it might seem like a confrontation?
No, she was more confrontational. She was much more confrontational, always confrontational. And I was trying to say that all of these things can be confrontational and maybe take it down a notch.
Okay, so you shouldn't disagree or reason or nudge. Is that what you were saying?
No, in the way that I know that it would be done. She was much more. She wasn't there wasn't a comforting conversation.
I'm sorry, Bernard. Were you done with your answer?
I think so.
Okay. Or do you believe that disagreeing with someone or trying to reason with them or nudging them justifies them getting abused?
All right. As to foundation, I'll sustain as to foundation if you want.
Okay. Do you have any have you ever disagreed with or reasoned with or nudged anyone in anything in your life?
This is hypothetical.
All right.
I mean, these are the words that she wrote.
It's late in the day,
I know.
These are the words that she wrote to my client. Disagreeing, reasoning, nudging, all can seem like confrontations.
I'll allow the question.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Have you ever disagreed or reasoned or nudged with someone in your life?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that doing any of those three things would justify your being abused?
Your Honor. This is
I'll sustain the question.
Withdraw.
Okay, thank you. All right. How much more do you have? Probably.
A little bit.
A little bit,
Yeah,
okay. Since it's
probably
5
an hour.
o'clock. All right, about an hour, okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, since it's 5 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and release you for the day, okay? Just a reminder, as always, please don't do any outside research. Don't talk to anybody about this case. Don't look at the news. Don't watch anything on TV. Don't read the papers, and just have a good, calm, peaceful night, okay? And we'll see you tomorrow bright and early, okay? Thank you. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. All right, you can have a seat, Mr. Dembrowski. Mr. Dembrowski, I just want to remind you that you're still under oath at this time, okay? All right, you want to continue with your cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Dembrowski.
Good morning.
So I believe we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but you were, in addition to being Mr. Depp's brother, you were I believe you referred to it as his personal manager, is that right?
I have been referred as, yes.
Okay. And so you were responsible for, or had some responsibility for his business affairs, right?
I actually coordinated with other people, but I didn't have full responsibility.
Right, but in terms of the information that you would receive, you would receive information that was relevant to Mr. Depp's business affairs and personal affairs, right?
At times, yes.
And you care about Mr. Depp's well-being, right?
Yes.
He's your brother.
Yes.
You love him, right? It was important to you that you, in your role as both his brother and as his manager, be kept informed of his well-being, right?
Yes.
And if something was wrong, you'd want to know about that, right?
Yes.
Did you ever have reason to believe from anyone other than Amber that Mr. Depp had a problem with drugs or alcohol?
No.
Did you ever have reason to believe from someone other than Amber that Mr. Depp romanticized drug culture?
No.
Did you ever have reason to believe from anyone other than Amber that Mr. Depp didn't take accountability for his actions?
I didn't have reason to believe that, no.
Did you ever have reason to believe from anyone other than Amber that Mr. Depp lacked patience for getting his needs met?
I didn't have reason to believe that, no.
Did you ever have reason to believe from someone other than Amber that Mr. Depp could act like a child if he didn't get immediate satisfaction?
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation.
I'm asking if she had.
Overruled, I'll allow it. That's fine.
Let me ask that again. Ms. Dembrowski, did you ever have reason to believe from anyone other than Amber that Mr. Depp could act like a child if he didn't get immediate satisfaction?
Hearsay, Your Honor.
Yeah, overrule for this question. We'll see if the follow-up. Okay.
I'm sorry?
Did you ever have reason to believe from someone other than Amber that Mr. Depp could act like a child if he didn't get immediate satisfaction?
I never had reason to believe that.
Did you ever have reason to believe from someone other than Amber that Mr. Depp had fundamental issues with anger?
Your Honor, may we approach?
Okay.
Reason to believe from someone other than Amber that your brother had fundamental issues with anger?
I didn't have reason to believe.
And did you ever have reason to believe from someone other than Amber that your brother didn't grasp the responsibility that he had in his children's lives?
I did not have reason to believe.
Heather, can you pull up Exhibit 268, please? Ms. Dembrowski, is this an email from Dr. David Kipper to you on August 18th, 2014?
Objection, per se.
It's not being offered yet, so I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
I don't have it.
Can you see the document on your screen?
You might have to make it bigger. It's much smaller.
I don't have anything.
Oh, do you?
I'm
Can you
sorry.
see it there, ma'am?
No.
It's not showing up on her screen.
Just bear with us 1 minute. Thank you.
Do I need to do something?
It's not coming up. Do you have a physical copy that she could look at?
Not that's not marked up. Let me, can you see if you can grab one?
Oh, wait, she's got it.
Oh, okay.
Turn it off and on, see?
That's the trick.
That's the judge rule.
Thank you. To take as much time as you need to read it, Ms. Dembrowski, but my question is this an email from Dr. David Kipper to you on August 18th, 2014?
Yes, it's got my name on there. Yes, it's from him.
And this is an email that you would have received on or about that date, August 18th, 2014, to the best of your knowledge?
It was sent on that date, yes.
And it's about Dr. Kipper's treatment of your brother, correct?
I'm actually reading it.
Okay, take your time. Thank you.
Sorry. Is there, I'm sorry, is there more to the,
There's another page which we can go to, but my question is just this, and I think we established this. This is an email that you received from Dr. Kipper, correct?
yes.
Okay. Your Honor, permission to publish the second paragraph on page 1 into the, and then the remainder of that paragraph on page 2 with everything redacted, else redacted.
You're asking to enter it into evidence.
Yes, we'd like to enter it into evidence with those redactions.
Your Honor, 2 letters. Here's that. May we approach?
Sure.
Ms. Dembrowski, if you can take a look at the first page of that email, please. In the second paragraph, well, first of all, who was Dr. Kipper?
Dr. Kipper was the doctor that was helping my brother, helping my brother get help from the pain medication addiction that he had.
He was helping him with his drug addiction.
The pain medication.
And your brother was addicted to pain pills.
He had been taking them for a long time, yes.
Right. And you were instrumental in hiring Dr. Kipper to help your brother try to deal with that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so Dr. Kipper, in his role as someone treating your brother, tried to keep you informed of what was going on with that treatment, right?
Yes.
And it was important to you as both his brother, his sister, and his manager that you be kept informed of that, right?
It was important as his sister.
And well, and his issues with drugs were having an impact on his career as well, too, right?
No.
And you knew that they were having an impact on his relationship with Amber, right?
Objection, lack of foundation.
She's given plenty of testimony about.
Overruled, I'll allow it.
You knew that the drugs were having an impact on his relationship with Amber, right?
I knew that Amber claimed certain things.
But you didn't believe that they were?
I didn't necessarily believe it, no.
Okay. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Isn't it true that on the bottom paragraph on page 1 that Dr. Kipper informed you that your brother was uncomfortable and pessimistic that he will ever be able to stop doing drugs?
Objection, what you're saying.
I'm not asking for this.
I'll allow this question, but it's the only question on that point, okay? Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Isn't it true that Dr. Kipper informed you in August of 2014 that your brother was uncomfortable and is pessimistic that he will ever be able to stop doing drugs?
He does write this in this email, but this email is an update. I believe, if I'm looking at the dates, and I don't remember all dates, but I know that period and what's written in the email. I think this was during the time that they were where he was getting help from Dr. Kipper.
Right, but that's what he informed you of in your role as his manager and his sister about the status of Mr. Depp's belief that he would be able to stop doing drugs, right?
Objection, you're saying.
I'll allow that question.
I think he was informing me of the conversations, yes.
And he also informed you that your brother didn't take accountability for his behaviors, correct?
He does say in here that, yes, he wrote that he has no accountability for his behaviors in this time.
And Heather, can you go to the top of page 2, please? In that first and second line, he also told you that your brother has fundamental issues with anger, right?
Your Honor, objection to hearsay. No exception applies.
All right.
It's the same exception that applied to the other ones. This is what he informed her.
We need to move on, though.
Okay.
We can.
Heather, you can take that down. So you just testified, Ms. Dembrowski, that you understood from Amber that drugs and alcohol were impacting their relationship, but that you didn't necessarily believe that, right?
Right.
And you didn't necessarily share those concerns, right?
Right.
Did you have an occasion to speak with Amber after a plane flight from Boston to Los Angeles in May of 2014?
Objection to hearsay.
I just asked if she spoke with her. I'm not asking what the content
Just
is.
spoke. I'll overrule the objection at this time.
I don't recall specific times speaking with Amber like that.
Okay. Did you become aware of an incident on a plane flight from Boston to Los Angeles in May of 2014?
Objection, lack of foundation.
Foundation objection? If you, I'll
She's
sustain
testified that she.
I'll sustain the objection as foundation if you can lay a foundation.
If something happened in your brother's life that was notable, you wanted to know about it. You testified to that, right?
Objection calls for speculation.
Yes, sir.
It's a foundation question. She's testified that she had insight into his daily life.
I don't see it as a foundation question, so I'm going to sustain the objection if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah,
You were kept apprised of the goings-on in Johnny's life, correct?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah, and you testified yesterday you saw him just about every day, correct?
What I testified to yesterday, saw him every day, was when he was with the family of Vanessa.
And you still saw him, or were in touch with him fairly frequently as his business manager and as his sister when he was with Amber, correct?
Less frequent,
Okay, but still with some frequency, right?
yes.
And if an event had happened that was potentially harmful to your brother, you would want to know about that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And
Answered several times.
All right, I'll sustain asked and answered. Next question.
you made an effort to make yourself available to Ms. Hurd to talk to you about issues she was having with your brother, correct?
Excuse me, I made an effort to talk to her anytime I felt she needed to speak.
Somebody's trying to call us.
It's kind of a pleasant ringtone.
I didn't answer it, so. I don't know.
Ms. Dembrowski, in addition to just Amber believing it, you believed that your brother needed help, didn't you?
Objection made.
Vague.
You believed that your brother needed help with drugs and alcohol, didn't you?
Overruled the objection. Go ahead.
Sorry.
I believed on the one medication I was concerned about.
And you wanted your brother to get better from his addictions, right?
I wanted to address the medication that he was on.
And you understood that Amber wanted the same thing, wanted him to get better for both him and for her, correct?
Objection calls for speculation as to what Amber wanted.
I'll sustain as to what Amber wanted.
Now, do you recall meeting with Ms. Hurd on May 25th, 2014?
I don't recall.
Let's pull up Exhibit 234, please.
You said that was 234?
234, yes.
Okay, thank you.
The non-redacted version. Yeah. Ms. Dembrowski, this is a multi-page exhibit that we can, we're not going to ask you about all the pages, but is this a text message chain between Amber and you on May 25th, 2014?
Yes,
And those are your texts in gray on the left, right?
yes,
And Ms. Heard's texts in blue on the right?
yes.
Your Honor, we have a version of this exhibit with Ms. Heard's text redacted and the personal identifiers redacted that I'd like to ask the witness about and publish to the jury. I'm happy.
First, you want to admit into evidence before you publish it to the jury.
Correct,
So
right. So I'm just previewing that. Would you like me to go through the unredacted version with the witness first?
No.
Or,
Well, if it's just her text, how is that probative, if it's just her text?
because it's her text about what two things. One, it's her text about what she wanted for her brother. We'll get to those on page 2.
She still has the same hearsay about it.
I'm allowed to ask her about her own words and what her feelings toward her
You can
brother.
ask her about it, but it's not coming into evidence.
Okay, well, okay.
Okay?
Ms. Dembrowski, did you reach out to Ms. Heard on May 25th, 2014,
Yes,
asking her if she wanted to talk?
yes.
Why did you do that?
I
Did you do that because you had been made aware of an issue about your brother's behavior on a flight earlier that day?
I
Or the
don't
day
re-
before?
I don't recall why I did that.
You don't recall why you did that?
No,
You have no awareness or memory of a flight earlier that day or the day before?
I don't recall all flights at all times. I don't have any specific memory of anything.
If you can turn to page 2, Heather. If you can look at your third text down, Your Honor, or Ms. Dembrowski, you say to him, or to Ms. Heard, you say to Ms. Heard, I love him so much, but he needs help, and I don't have all the information to help alone. Do you see that?
Objection, Your Honor, this is all hearsay.
I'll allow that question. That's fine.
I do see that.
And what did you mean when you said he needs help?
I don't recall the actual timing of it, but I wanted to help him with that medication that he was on. That I know. And I know that I wanted to be able to be helpful in life because they were arguing all the time.
And I believe you testified earlier that you didn't actually have concerns about your brother's dependence on drugs, right?
No, I said that I did have about the medication.
Just the pain pills?
It was the pain pills.
Nothing else?
I didn't have concern.
So when you said he needs help, that's what you were referring to, is that you believe that your brother needed help with pills?
Objection, Your Honor, this has been asked and answered.
May I approach, Your Honor?
All right.
Heather, can you please pull up the pages ending in 934? Start with that, please. Actually, let's go to 936.
Just for the record, this is still in Exhibit 234. It's just stamped page 936. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Ms. Dembrowski, do you see the message that you sent to Amber 3 down where you said he is going to see the doctor in the morning with 3 exclamation points?
Yes.
Tell me what you remember about that. Were you referring to, when you said he, you were referring to your brother, right?
Yes.
And by doctor, you meant an addiction doctor? Is that right?
I believe I would have meant Dr. Kipper.
Okay. And what was, you'd agree that it's fairly rare to get an appointment for a doctor the next day, right?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'll allow it. That's fine.
I don't know that it's rare to get an appointment the next day.
Well, Dr. Kipper wasn't an emergency room doctor, right?
No.
So what was so urgent about your brother's need to see a doctor that he was going to see Dr. Kipper the next morning when you texted this at 7:35 p.m.?
I don't know that it was urgent. I think I was happy that he was going to see the doctor.
And you were happy he was going to see the doctor because you thought he'd finally realized the problem that his drug addiction was having on himself and others, correct? That's why you were happy, right?
I was happy he was going to see the doctor because I was concerned about the pain medication he was on.
And you were concerned about what that pain medication did to your brother, right?
Yes.
You were concerned about the effect that that had on his life, right?
I was concerned about him.
And you were concerned about the effect that that drug addiction had on other relationships in his life as well, correct?
Your Honor, ask and answer.
I'm going through.
That's fine. I'll allow it. That's,
You can answer.
I didn't see anything that was happening necessarily in life to be concerned about others, me. It was him I was concerned about.
So you didn't see, your testimony today is that you didn't see any effect that your brother's drug problem was having on anyone else other than him.
My concern was him. I wasn't focused on anything beyond that.
Right. You weren't concerned about the effect that it could be having on anyone else. Is that your testimony?
Again, my concern was him.
Can you pull up page 937, please? And when you misheard the text at the top of the page at 9:20 p.m. on May 25th, 2014, and you said, "I just meant I will help in getting him help," what did that mean?
It's help with Dr. Kipper, I believe.
You were referring to getting your brother help for his drug addictions, correct?
I was referring to getting him help with the medication that he was on.
And if you go to page 938, please. When you told Amber at the bottom of that page at 10:26 p.m., I think you need to tell him you are scared and you can't deal. What did you mean by that? I think you need to tell him you are scared and you can't deal. What did you mean by that?
Objection, hearsay.
Asking her what she meant with one of her statements. It's no different from the statement I just asked her about.
Your Honor, it's hearsay. It's a new.
I'm just not sure what the prior inconsistent statement would be for this, which was,
Well, that she's testified that all of Amber's concerns were overblown.
okay.
drug abuse, you were concerned for your brother and your brother only, is that right?
I was concerned for my brother, yes.
And only your brother, is that right?
My brother was my focus.
Now, you, as in your capacity as his personal manager, you were often apprised of your brother's performance on movie sets, right? Did you have occasion to communicate with studios, for example, about movies that your brother was shooting?
Yes,
And studio executives could feel free to contact you about your brother's work?
yes, they mostly contacted the agent.
Okay. And who was the agent at the time? Was that
Tracy.
Tracy Jacobs? And that's your brother, Mr. Depp, fired Miss Jacobs in or around 2017, is that right?
I don't recall when.
How long was Miss Jacobs his agent?
20-something years.
And he fired Miss Jacobs at some point, right?
Yes.
After his divorce from Amber?
I don't recall exactly when he fired her.
Do you recall whether it was before or after he divorced Amber?
I don't recall. Sorry.
But in any event, you had frequent communications with Miss Jacobs about your brother's work, correct?
Excuse me. Yeah.
And you, in the course, in your capacity as his manager, it came to your attention that he was late to movie sets, correct?
Objection, lack of foundation, hearsay.
You testified that you had frequent contact with Ms. Jacobs, his agent, right?
Yes.
And that contact included when he was shooting movies?
Yes.
And that contact included communications relating to his conduct on set?
Objection, lack of foundation.
I'm laying the foundation.
Well, it sounds like your foundation is going to be based on hearsay, which is what we're going to be getting to.
Well,
If you can lay a foundation
Yeah.
without it being based on hearsay.
Did you have personal knowledge of your brother being late to a set? Movie shoots?
Would that be if I was physically there? Is that what you're asking? Or,
Your Honor, no, first I'd ask you to instruct Mr. Chu not to shake his head and nod his head to the witness. That's inappropriate.
All right.
I'm not shaking.
Okay.
Well, he was.
I'm nodding to the witness.
All right, well, I'll keep a lookout for that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Dembrowski, your brother told you himself that he was late to movie shoots, didn't he?
Objection, hearsay.
Party admission.
I'll allow that.
I don't think he came to me and said I'm late to movie shoots, no.
You learned from your brother that he was late to movie shoots, correct?
Objection, ask and answer.
I don't think he would have come to me to talk about it,
I'll allow
no.
it.
You learned, so you never had any communications with your brother about issues that he had being on time to movie sets? Is that your testimony?
No, what I'm saying is I worked with him for years. You know, there was never really a continuous topic of whether he was late to a movie set, him and I having a conversation.
He told you he had been late to movie sets, correct?
Objection, ask and answer.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Can you pull up
please.
348, please?
348.
If you can you blow it up so you just see the second email down, Heather? And that second email down is an email from you to Tracy Jacobs on February 27th, 2015, right?
Objection, hearsay.
I allowed that question. We'll see where we go.
The second, all the way down in here?
The second one down from the top. Sent at 12:50.
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's from me to Tracy.
Okay. Now, in the second sentence of that email, you write, he told me 1 to 1.5 hours, but not 2. Yes, he was 2.5 hours late one day and 7 hours recently. Do you see that?
I do see that.
And when you said he told me, you're referring to your brother, Johnny Depp, admitting to you that he was late to movie sets, right?
I don't know that I'm referring to him, no.
Okay. In any event, it was a problem. As personal manager, you knew that it was a problem for the studios if he showed up late to set, right?
I knew that on this particular film, there were times when he was late to set.
You did know on this particular film.
On this particular film.
And this particular film is Pirates 5, correct?
Yes,
Pirates of the Caribbean 5? And he was filming that in Australia, right?
yes,
And this email was sent on February 27th, 2015, right?
yes,
So you knew that as he was filming Pirates of the Caribbean 5 in 2015, early 2015, that he had problems being late to the set, right?
I wouldn't call it problems being late to set, but he was occasionally late to set.
Late enough that Disney executives called you to discuss that, right?
Objection, hearsay.
All right. I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
And you knew that this wasn't the only movie that he had been late to set for, correct?
Objection, lack of foundation.
She's testified about her close involvement in his personal affairs when he was shooting movies.
Still lack.
If you can lay a foundation, not based on hearsay.
Well, have you talked to your brother when he was filming each of the movies that he filmed, right?
Yes,
Okay. And with respect to Pirates 5, he told you that he had been late to the set, right?
no, I don't recall him telling me he was late to set.
Okay, so despite the fact that you said he told me, you don't recall whether that was him or not.
I don't know I don't know that the he in that refers to him.
Okay. You were also, I believe you testified yesterday that you were closely involved in the financial aspects of your brother's life, right?
I was closely involved in speaking with the representatives, but I wasn't really closely involved in, his financial world. That wasn't my thing.
And your brother's, the income that he made from movies or other commercial opportunities that he had, that funded both him and it flowed, or it came in through his companies, right? And then the money that your brother made came in through his companies, correct?
I don't really understand your question.
Well, you're the president of one of those companies, Infinitum Nile, right?
Yes,
So if your brother signs a movie contract, the money, is it paid directly to him or does it come in through a company that he's owns?
Infinitum Nile is completely a separate entity, so how he gets paid that's the business manager's.
Okay. You were involved with discussions of opportunities that he had to shoot movies, correct?
Sometimes, yes.
And you were in close contact with others on Mr. Depp's team about opportunities that arose, right?
Yes,
Okay. Including Tracy Jacobs,
yes,
his agent?
yes,
Including, in fact, you would be in contact with studios directly as well. It's from time to time, right?
yes.
And Mr. Jacobs, well, strike that. In your capacity as his personal manager, you became aware of financial distress that your brother was in, correct? Because you were familiar with his financial affairs, right?
I was somewhat familiar. That was the other representative's area.
Okay. Did you have occasion to become familiar with whether he was undergoing financial distress such that he needed to get movies, a certain number of movies a year?
Tracy had a certain number of movies per year that she wanted him to do.
And the certain number of movies a year, to your understanding, the certain number of movies a year that your brother had to do was necessary to stave off financial distress, correct?
The certain number of movies per year, Tracy would push for a certain number of movies per year because it was beneficial to her.
That's the only reason she pushed for a certain number of movies a year?
That's the main reason Tracy would push for a certain number of movies per year, yes.
Not because it was beneficial to Mr. Depp?
If it was beneficial to Mr. Depp, then it was going to be beneficial to Tracy.
Okay, but just because it was beneficial to Tracy doesn't mean it wasn't beneficial to Mr. Depp or his companies, correct?
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Now, at some point, you became aware when he was filming Pirates 5 in Australia, you became aware of an injury that he suffered to his finger, right?
Yes.
And you were involved in trying to cover up how it happened, correct?
Objection, lack of foundation.
I'll allow the question.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
You were involved in helping to cover up how the finger injury happened, right?
I don't understand cover up.
You were involved in making sure that people on Mr. Depp's team didn't say how he hurt his hand, correct?
Objection, lack of foundation.
I'll allow it if she can answer it.
You can answer.
We certainly didn't want any press to know about it, so that's, to keep it from that.
And because you didn't want any press to know about his finger injury, you told Mr. Depp's personal assistant to make sure that to say that he wasn't sure how Mr. Depp hurt his hand, correct? You instructed him to say that.
If it was someone that I would be concerned that the word would get out to the press, I would have done that.
So it was okay to you to tell people to lie to protect your brother, right?
It wasn't necessarily a lie. I didn't know how he hurt his finger myself at the time, because I'm pretty sure I know the time frame you're talking about is when it first happened.
And you have no personal knowledge to this day of how he hurt his finger, correct? Because you weren't there.
I wasn't there.
Heather, can you pull up Exhibit 210 redacted, please? Your Honor, this is the exhibit we discussed yesterday. If the court and Mr. Chu agrees with the redactions, I'd just like to publish it to the jury and admit it into evidence.
Well, if it's 210, it's already in evidence. That's the one you gave me this morning, correct? No, that's a different.
Yeah, I think that was 214.
That was 214. I'm sorry. I got them backwards. This is 210.
And I believe that it's just one page? Or it's two pages, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's these 2 pages that we talked about yesterday.
Right. Reserving your objections, are the redactions correct?
The redactions are correct. We reserve our redactions.
Okay, that's fine. I will enter 214 into evidence over objections.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
All right, yes, sir.
Thank you. Can you blow that up, please? So, Ms. Dembrowski, we discussed this a little bit yesterday. This is the text exchange between you and Ms. Hurd on February 3rd, 2014, where Ms. Hurd says, JD is on a bender, and your response is, where are the kids, correct?
Yes.
And just scroll down, please. Let's go to the next page, please. Let's scroll down to the bottom, please. And then you text Amber, worry about everything. Is that right?
I wrote the words "worry about everything." It was myself. I was speaking about myself.
And you tell her, I don't love any of it, correct?
Right.
And,
All right, sustained, we did go through this yesterday, but go ahead.
and 2 days later is when you sent your brother the text messages that said, stop booze, stop coke, stop pills, correct?
I'm not looking at it. I don't recall the timing of it.
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right, redirect.
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Dembrowski.
Good morning.
During Mr. Rottenborn's examination yesterday and again this morning, he spent a lot of time talking to you about your brother's alleged drug and alcohol abuse. Do you remember that?
Yes.
You're not denying that Mr. Depp ever used alcohol or drugs, are you?
Objection leading.
It's redirect, Your Honor.
That's still leading. I'll sustain as to leading if you want to rephrase your question.
You also testified several times in response to Mr. Rottenborn's questions that Ms. Heard tends to say things in a more dramatic manner. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
Why did you say that?
I've had my own interaction one-on-one with Ms. Heard, so I know a bit about her personality. She would present information to me that was not necessarily information that was supported by everybody else that was around. And I've spent a lot of years working with my brother. We have a close team. It's many years of trusted people helping, make sure that everything in life, it works out and goes smoothly. But all those people where I would have a daily contact, whether it's about scheduling or just how the day's going for all the years, those people never said the same thing.
Objection hearsay, Your Honor.
I think it was responsive to the question.
Well, I'll sustain the last sentence.
Yeah,
Just
Your Honor,
the last sentence of it, that's all.
understood, Your
Okay.
Honor. I think
Strike as well.
it goes to state of mind rather than the
But
truth.
I just did the last sentence. I'll sustain just the last sentence.
Thank you,
Strike
Your
the
Honor.
last sentence, okay?
And do you recall your testimony yesterday when you stated that after the phenomenal success of Pirates 1, one of the changes to Mr. Depp's, your brother's, personal life was that there were a lot more people around him after that? Do you recall that?
Yes.
When Johnny and Miss Heard became involved in a relationship several years later, were there still a lot of people around them, your brother, on a regular basis?
Yes.
Who were those people?
He had assistants, he had security, he had, property managers, people that helped at the house. He had quite a few people that were around all the time.
How often did you communicate with those people?
I communicated daily, not necessarily with each one of those people, but I communicated pretty much daily with people within the world, the circle.
Did any of those people ever raise the same concerns that Ms. Heard did?
Objection hearsay.
All right.
Again, it goes to state of mind.
I'll sustain the objection as to hearsay. Next question.
What, if any, concerns were expressed about Johnny's behavior when using alcohol?
Objection hearsay.
All right.
Again, it goes to state of mind.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Thank you, Your Honor, that's all I have.
All right. Is this witness subject to recall?
I do not believe so, Your Honor.
She's subject to recall? No?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Brusky, you're free to go, or you can stay in the courtroom. It's up to you, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dembrowski.
All right.